or play baseball tonight. He's hitting leadoff, and I'm scared. Because the Padres do nothing but disappoint. That's not actually true. They've won. I think they've won their last 2 against the Diamondbacks. So, I think they play later. I might throw them on, but
Sounds
all right.
good.
JP, talk for me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, let's have a talk a little bit, and then I'm also gonna talk at the same. Wait, let's see how you sound. All right, JP, talk for me. Yeah, let's have a talk a little. Did you have the live stream pulled up in the background, JP?
I wish.
Okay, I thought I heard my voice.
You might hear it coming back through the mic. I can turn down. I haven't changed the volume.
Oh, I definitely heard my iPad coming through my microphone. That's what it was.
Well done.
Yeah, so I was cooking there. We're ready to start it and get into the Big 12. Whenever you are, Jack. Whenever you're ready to say, "What's up, team?"
Yeah.
And press the button.
What is up, team? And welcome back to another episode of the Technical Fowl podcast. You're joined by all 3 of us today. I'm Jack Anderson. To my right is Sanders Oakley, and then it is to my right, but yeah, I guess to my left, kind of, and virtual is JP Pusilowski, enjoying a waffle, I think, is what I saw just a second ago, if I'm correct. And he's wearing all green. He's fitted out.
He's ready for St. Patrick's Day?
That already happened, but
he's getting ready for next St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, starting early.
Got to get a head start.
There's not even like a green team in the Big 12, which is what we're doing today, by the way, is the Big 12 preview. Ooh, I can't. There's a reason I forgot about Baylor. That's
Jack's a Baylor hater.
That's like, are you?
Green Bay Packers.
Okay,
Right.
Perfect. Perfect. That's what I love to see.
Chicago.
Yeah, actually, that is very strange.
Yeah, you're wearing a very, very diverse outfit over there.
How are we doing today, boys? Before we get into the meat of the show.
Very sore. I played basketball last night. Oh, shoot. I just realized I'm not even wearing my Padres shoes. I'm wearing my Birkenstocks. I forgot to change. But, yeah, I'm very sore. My leg hurts. But other than that, great. I gave a guy a concussion, unfortunately. I cut under the basket, and somebody made a great pass, and I, go up and then realized that someone was going up to, contest it. So I just, kind of didn't. And then, of course, he, his knees hit my shoulders. He goes over me, flips over, hits the ground, bonks his head, and he was banged up. He came back in later in the game, so he's a dog.
He's fine then.
Yeah, but it was still, I felt bad, even though it was my fault. It was still
there is no concussion protocol at
pickup basketball.
Midweek pickup basketball. Yeah,
in any pickup basketball, I would say.
You never know. Some people take it too serious.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that was fun. But work's been great. It's been so fun. I basically do what I do for the podcast, but I do it and I get paid at the same time. So that's awesome. Doing a lot of graphic things and thumbnails and live streams and stuff. So, or getting ready for all that once the season starts for the high school. But right now, obviously just preparation and work, laying the groundwork, so that when the school year gets here.
And your work week is over.
Yeah, true. My work week, we are a 9 to 3 Monday through Thursday during the summer, because during the school year we're 7:30 to 9 Monday through Friday. So we dial things back a little bit in the summer. I say I've been there for a week. Yeah, we just like to take it easy after a hard year's work.
Yeah.
We just kick it back.
You're already feeling pretty burnt out, so
yeah, I need
a
the
good
rest.
recharge.
Hey, yeah, come Thursday, dude. Sure. After that, 4 times 6? After those 24 hours of work, I just need a reset. I got to take Friday. Friday's a me day to kind of get back in the swing of things.
Understandable.
JP, how are you?
I've done 24 hours of work in the past 48 hours. I think Jack can probably say he's done something similar too. So
pretty close, yeah. But I'm glad your pace is pretty chill. I mean, I've been enjoying it just fine. And we got off early today. So,
big time.
Take your wins where you can find
We got
them.
off early. You got out there at 5:45.
Yeah.
Got out there at 5.
5:30.
So I don't know what time you got get off.
3.
Yeah, you didn't get off early. You
But
just
that's less than 8 hours.
5:30.
No.
Yeah,
That's not.
that's 9 hours, nine
That's
and a
9
half hours.
But we got a lunch.
So you worked seven and a half.
I worked a normal length day, and compared to where we have been recently,
Yeah,
it's not been a normal length day, and so it felt pretty fantastic.
That is
honestly.
fair. I just think it's funny that
And
like
we really only wrapped up early because they ran out of gasoline on the roof, and so we couldn't get any more gasoline in our generator. And it was
that's
like,
tough.
well, darn. I guess we gotta go home.
Gotta go home. I guess that's
Yeah.
so sad.
But yeah, I'm chilling.
We ready to preview the Big 12?
Why don't we do that?
We'll kick it off. Jack, I was talking to Jack last night. He's very ready.
There's 17 Big 12 teams.
There's
as well?
16.
Okay, I can't count.
Yeah, no, we'll be fine. This is gonna be great. We'll go ahead and start with Arizona, the Wildcats.
Yeah, Arizona Wildcats. They get to come up first because they're they're first alphabetically in the Big 12. They had a pretty good year last year. Went 9-4, and I feel like going into the year, there was a good bit of uncertainty. It had been kind of a lackluster. We're going way back now, but 2024 with Noah Fafita, new head coach, and everyone kind of was wondering like,
Tedero McMillan comes back
Yeah.
for his junior year. It doesn't go well.
Correct. So like, is the program going in the right direction, or is that one really good year they had a flash in the pan? A pretty good bounce back year. Noah Fafita was very good, and he is back and ready to roll yet again. Feels like he's been there forever. JP, what does Vegas have their win total at for 2026?
It is 7.5. Sorry to interrupt. We'll get you for the next one, Vegas man. But right now, the win total for Arizona is 7.5.
Feels pretty reasonable to me. What are y'all's thoughts on this team headed into 2026?
I'm excited for another year of Fafita. He's the kind of guy that I really wish we would get to watch more of in the NFL, but I don't think we will. I think that it's the college will be the end of the road for him. But
Arena Football League.
Arena Football
There's
League,
a chance.
yeah. And he was the kind of guy
Does does the league still exist where they like let the fans call the plays? What was that? It lasted a whopping 2 years, one season.
Yeah, they stream the games on Twitch.
Yeah, I just remember
I
John
called a play
Izzo
on.
played
I've
it-
called a
played
play
it.
in that game.
Did
in
it
that,
work?
I don't remember. I like watched one game and like voted because I was like, this is really cool, and then it was just like, this is not as fun as I thought it would be.
So you in mass called a play.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You
not
weren't like-
individually.
Sanders, thank you for the $50 donation.
No, let's log back in. Let's log back in.
let's see what his play call is.
No, but so like 3 years ago, we were talking about Fafita after his redshirt freshman and redshirt sophomore year, the good year. It was Tedero McMillan's sophomore year, and he looked fantastic. That would have been redshirt sophomore year.
Yeah.
And I think the conversations then were like, oh, okay, like maybe this kid could be like a Bryce Young, like maybe he could end up in the NFL. And I think now, 2 years later, we kind of know that will not be the case. But I am
Sure.
excited to watch him for another year. What can you tell me, JP? Any thoughts about the rest of that roster outside of Fafita?
Yeah. Probably not. Yeah. That's kind of was my synopsis as well in terms of they're going to be looking a lot at internal development for kind of those offensive positions, and it's going to need to come in a big way because they didn't, like you said, they lost a lot. So we'll see if it happens. Any final thoughts, Sanders?
Trying to fix audio.
That's important. We will pause real quick. It's just good content.
I try. All right, we should be good. We now have JP's audio, which is unfortunate because
Did we not have it the whole
nope,
time?
we did not.
All right. Why don't we just restart the episode?
Restart the whole episode.
Well, he's not been talking this whole time.
No. We had him for the intro. We didn't have him for Arizona.
Okay.
So the issue was that the thing that captures his audio was only on the intro scene and then not the Arizona scene. So we missed him for the Arizona scene. So if we want to restart Arizona,
Yes, let's do that then. Why don't we restart
we can
Arizona?
rehyt that. Apologies.
Maybe we just make everyone lip read, honestly.
We can get John Boy on that.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. Arizona Wildcats had a pretty good 2025. Ended up going 9-4, a big jump up from kind of a disappointing 2024 season, and they're going to look to ride that momentum into this 2026 season. Noah Fafita still at the helm in the backfield, leading the offense. JP, what does Vegas have their win total at for 2026?
Vegas has got it at 7.5, and the over on that is a slight underdog.
Sure.
Roughly like 50-45.
So Vegas is looking at them to be a bowl team, but not really much more than that, is kind of what they're predicting. Do we agree, disagree, and if so, why? Thoughts on the roster? What do we got?
I think I'll probably lean towards the under here, and what we can that's where we can get to that later. We'll break it down more further, but that's kind of what I want to start with. I am excited to watch Fafita, as I said about 10 minutes ago before we realized that we didn't have audio and started over. I am excited to watch Fafita. He's a guy that, if I remember, like his redshirt freshman year is kind of when he broke out. So he's going into his redshirt senior year now. So redshirt freshman, year 2 in the program, threw for 25 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions. That was also around the time when Bryce Young was, I think, getting drafted. And I remember people giving comps like Noah Fafita to Bryce Young comps. They're both on the smaller side. Fafita's only 5'10". And I remember specifically a podcast saying Noah Fafita is the biggest Bryce Young fan in college football, because if Bryce Young can figure it out at 5'10" and kind of the similar build, then Fafita, if he has a good college career, has a chance. And I don't think we're having those conversations anymore. I don't think Fafita really has any professional prospects at all. Obviously hasn't in his time in college. That's why he's here. He's been here for 5 years. But he's a really good college football quarterback. I'm excited to watch him. Threw for a career high touchdowns last year with 29. And so it's going to be tough. I don't know that the wide receiver room is necessarily going to be there to support. I know JP was talking about the weapons they do have, and we can get into that into a minute. But I just don't know. There's some other good teams in the Big 12, and we'll get into them later. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go over the 7.5 in Big 12 play. JP, what are your thoughts on the rest of the roster?
The rest of the roster wise, a lot of their talent is defensively. They lost their leading rusher and their leading receiver from last year, so Fafita's got to kind of replace that with his own skill. The pieces that they brought in didn't necessarily replace that. They did bring in a receiver from USC, DJ Jordan, I believe is his name. But they're going to expect their leading rusher and leading receiver this year to be guys returning from last year's roster. But those guys didn't produce necessarily at the same level as, of course, their top producing pieces. Their more intriguing pieces on this team are going to be on the defensive side of the ball.
Sure.
They've got a really good Mike linebacker in Tay Brown, and then a pretty good edge rusher in Trey Smith. I expect both of those guys to be pretty productive on their side of the football. But as far as the offense goes, it's going to be Fafita led, um, and it'll be he who decides kind of how far this team can go. It is a very intriguing conversation though with him. I remember the Bryce Young stuff, of course, infamously on this show. Bryce Young has not worked out, but Fafita, I think, can easily make a case this year that he's the best quarterback in the Big 12. And I know when we broke down that conference last year, that was kind of a big talking point in terms of how we picked a team to win the conference. Most unfortunately, I thought Avery Johnson might end up being the best quarterback in the conference.
Not quite there.
Well, he was close. It's the only reason they didn't win is because they lost the Ireland game. If they hadn't lost that, I think they probably would have won the Big 12. But once you lose the Ireland game, like you just have no hope.
Good point.
I'm
Good
gonna
point.
obviously pump the brakes on maybe using that argument this year with how much that down went down last year. But Fafita, I think, can make that case, and that's a pretty cool case to make for a guy that's 5'10", not your
Sure.
typical quarterback build, at least really productive typical quarterback build. But I think if he can make that kind of case, I do think to a degree he can make Arizona kind of maybe not a player to win the conference, but a player to upset teams that are looking to win the conference. They got a big game at BYU, which is like in the first 3 weeks of the season. BYU is going to be one of the teams that's favored to win this conference and be in the playoff. Does a loss that early to a team like Arizona affect them and their chances of hosting a first round game or going on the road in the first round?
Yeah, it's a good point. I honestly want to say I should have already had this down. This is just not helpful. I want to say they play most of the big hitters in the Big 12. Like they don't really catch a break schedule wise, which is, as we kind of pick over under, something to consider. Yeah, because they go to Texas Tech.
Yep, to BYU.
Play Utah, at Kansas State. Even teams like TCU, Iowa State. Okay, Iowa State did lose their coach, so maybe we'll circle back
all
to
the
that.
roster.
Yeah, Arizona State. If you still trust in Kenny Dillingham, like they don't really get. Not only do they play the top tier of the Big 12, they don't really get a bunch of kind of the bottom feeders. It's not like they don't get both sides of the coin. So tough draw for them schedule wise. With that being said, any final thoughts? And if not, we'll go ahead and pick over under.
I'm down to go ahead. I will give a quick shout out because I try to look at recruiting a good bit. And they did have a top 5 portal class this offseason.
Wow.
In the Big 12. Sorry, I should have. I only look at like within the conference.
Net portal class, correct?
It is the On3 net portal class.
I just want to clarify because I feel like not everyone will see that.
So if you just look at like the not net, it's actually the 10th. So they did a good job of maintaining the roster, which is why if you look at the our lads projected starters, there's a lot of guys projected to start from inside the program. Your thing is doing the computer's doing the thing where it changes to Yahoo instead of Google.
Yeah, it's actually, and it's just.
Yep, hate that. But there's a lot of guys projected to start who have been in the program since last year at least and going back beyond that. So they're promoting from within as far as starters go, which that'll be something to keep your eye on. Like, how does that work for them? But I'm down to go and get into picking.
Quick IT help session. Do you know how to fix that?
Yes.
Permanently?
Well, it is permanent, and then sometimes it resets it like every couple months.
I did it like a couple days ago, and it reset like within a couple days.
Oh, I've never seen it go that quickly, but you know how
it's the dumbest BS ever.
It is not ideal.
What do you mean? I open a Google Chrome as my browser, and it puts me into Yahoo as my search engine.
Well, we can figure that out in between videos.
Yeah.
We'll
I mean, y'all. I know y'all feel my pain as the listeners. Clearly, I didn't know this is something that happened to other people.
We might have a bunch of DuckDuckGo listeners.
Maybe I may have to get on DuckDuckGo. Does DuckDuckGo do this?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you're on DuckDuckGo, it probably doesn't like kick you to Yahoo.
But I'm not getting kicked to. I don't know. Anyway, over under JP 7.5 for Arizona.
I'm going to take the over. I think the quarterback play, Fafita, will carry them. I think he will get them to 8 wins, and they find a way to upset a few of these teams that are, vying for the Big 12.
Sure.
So I'll take the over for Arizona.
I got to find 5 losses in the schedule. Um, BYU, Texas Tech, Utah. It's hard. Arizona State, if you give it to them, is 4, but Arizona State is a home game for the Wildcats. So
Hey, didn't Northern Arizona play them close last year? Close-ish.
I do not remember. It's probably one of those games that gets forgotten about because it's not actually an upset. It's like that year that Alabama was tied with that team 10-all at halftime and then won like 49-10.
The Citadel, I believe.
But I'm actually going to backtrack my earlier statement and go back towards the over.
Wow.
Y'all have talked me out of it.
What is
I've
that?
talked myself out of it. Yeah. I had to keep the Arizona State listeners. I'm trying to get some rage bait and some comment farming, as they call me,
So
stupid.
you lured them in and then just
I
crushed
played
their
them.
hopes and dreams.
Yep, exactly. They're playing checkers while I'm playing chess, but I'm going to go over.
Respect. Cool. I also take the over. I kind of believe in what they got going on there. I would love to see a good season from Noah Fifita. You know, I've been kind of an Arizona guy ever since, you know, my boy Kevin Sumlin left A&M and went there. Not actually. But I have been a boy since the Jaden Delora days, and then Fafita obviously took Delora's job, but it was just a treat to watch Delora play quarterback, and is now a treat to watch Fafita play quarterback. So give me the over 7.5. I don't think, spoiler for our, and you know, whenever we do our big show and pick conference champions, like I don't really think they're going to be a player to win the Big 12, but I'll take the over here.
Cool. Let's hit Arizona State.
Just, is the audio good?
Yep,
Okay.
I'm just going to keep pasting it as we go forward.
Cool. Arizona State, disappointing. 2025, honestly. You know, you make the first ever 12-team college football playoff. You take Texas down to the wire, and you return a decent amount of those pieces. But injuries largely derailed the season. Jordan Tyson, injured. Sam Levitt missed a lot of the season. And so they kind of limp their way to an 8-5 season. And now they have a lot of work to do. They lost a ton in the portal, most notably Sam Levitt. Mentioned Jordan Tyson. He went to the draft. They are second to last in the Big 12 in returning production. They're going to need a new quarterback. With all that in mind, how does Vegas factor that into their 2026 win total, JP?
Vegas sees it as a true another step back. I guess I should say it's even money on 6.5.
Okay. So basically, kind of similar. I mean, Arizona was 7.5, but similar vibes in terms of Vegas kind of sees them making a bowl game, but probably not really much else. I already talked about Sam Levitt leaving. You know, he went to LSU. Where did they go to look to replace him, Sanders? What are they looking at with the QB position?
They came and they took my brother's quarterback, who
Yeah.
he was very excited about. And so, as a result, I hope that Arizona State fans are excited about him as well. Cutter Boley played at Kentucky last year as a true freshman, I believe, and threw for over 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So he's young, right? He made a lot of mistakes. But clearly, Dillingham likes him, and Dillingham went and found Sam Levitt and, you know, brought him in from Michigan State as a transfer. As a young transfer, I believe he might have just done the spring there, maybe early enrolled and then transferred. Maybe did a full year.
At the most, it was just a full year.
Yeah. So a very, very young guy coming from Michigan State, and now 3-4 years later, after he loses Levitt in the portal, he goes and finds what maybe Arizona State fans are hoping is the next Sam Levitt. He goes and gets Cutter Boley, who, like I said, was at Kentucky. And he brings him in, and it's going to be, I think, exciting, right? This is hopefully, if you're an Arizona State fan, he's the future of the football program for the next 2 to 3 years, which is definitely a possibility.
Hopefully
also,
it's not just a good 1 year and then he boogies elsewhere.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. I feel like not. I feel like Kenny Dillingham, that's not the culture he has. I mean, the fact that I'm sure Sam Levitt had callers a year ago and didn't go until Kiffin came calling from LSU with who knows how much money. But the fact that he was able to keep that team together with the talent they had, that he was able to keep Jordan Tyson in the program, with the talent that he was able to keep Levitt in the program. And Arizona State is not some dominant football program. Like they had to have been staying, in my opinion, for the culture that he was building there and for the coach that he was. And so now He's gone and he's brought in some more transfers. JP, do you have thoughts on the rest of the roster outside of Boley?
I actually have thoughts on that
I was
quarterback.
going to say, you can give thoughts
fire
on
those away
Bully as
first.
well.
I'm not necessarily going to guarantee it's going to be Cutter Boley that starts for them. Their reporters, like our Maroon and White Daily or whatever that we have for Mississippi State, their reporters are saying it's an open competition right now between 4 different quarterbacks. I'd say there's 3 that are pretty decent candidates, and that would be Cutter Boley, one of them, with his 6'5" frame. But there's 2 guys that are much shorter than him. A 6'1" 4-star freshman, Jake Fett, I think would be how you say that last name. Maybe Fetty, I don't know. And then Mikey Keene, the transfer from Michigan, who's 5'11". So for the casual fan that may watch those guys warm up on the sideline, if one of the shorter guys starts this year, I imagine there would be some guys questioning why the 6'5" guy who played in the SEC didn't start this year. But I do think there's some competition there. That being said, whoever does start at quarterback is going to have some decent weapons around them. They return one of the Brown running backs from last year, his Tyson Brown, who had a good day against Mississippi State in the second half. And then Amarian Miller, who is a transfer from Colorado, I'm pretty sure, who is a senior, 6'2", very, very good player. One of the guys that played with Deion Sanders and was coached by Deion Sanders. So I imagine he got some good things from him as well. I don't expect him to be, a Hall of Famer like Jordan Tyson is going to be one day. But I think
he's a Saints fan. He's a Saints fan, so
yeah.
I think he will have a productive season for the Devils.
I was wondering how he was going to work. He was either going to mention the Saints or at least circle back around to Jordan Tyson, because I knew there was no way he was going to let that slide. I think that's very well said. In terms of schedule for this team, it's kind of an interesting one. An earlier bye, it's a week 4 bye, and it's because the week before they play in the Union Jack Classic against Kansas, so they're going to be over in London. And then also just something else to note, a big-time out-of-conference opponent. Week 2, they're going to Kyle Field to play my Aggies. Should be a fun one. So kind of an interesting start to their schedule, and then they get the bye, and they really get rolling in conference play. Couple big, tough tests. They go to Texas Tech, and they go to BYU. So watch out for those games. Over under 6.5. What are we thinking here, boys? I know what I'm thinking. So I'll
fire it away.
You
rip it off.
I'm gonna take the over. I talked about, that they don't return a ton of production, but I like what they got on the portal enough, and I like Kenny Dillingham as a coach enough. I think they'll find over 6.5 wins easy. In terms of like the quality of team they are. I'm not saying they're going to reach like 10 wins, but I think they're going to easily find 6.5 wins.
Yeah, I think they're a little bit different than Arizona, who we just talked about. I do think they get to face some of like the more bottom feeders in the Big 12, at least as far as preseason favorites go, right? You can always have a team like Arizona State from 2 years ago who comes out of nowhere, but they get to play UCF, they get to play Colorado, they get to play Oklahoma State, who obviously, yes, new head coach, everything is changing, but that's not a guarantee that it changes for the better, right? It's not a guarantee that it works. We'll talk about them later. Play Baylor. Baylor, I believe, they're the 11th, right? They're 11th in the preseason odds to win the Big 12. So they do get to play 3 or 4 teams from kind of the bottom quarter of the Big 12, which is to their advantage, right? You win those 3 games. You win your 3 out-of-conference games. Now you only need to pick up 1 more. I apologize. Is it 3 out-of-conference? They play 8 or 9 conference games.
They played 9 conference
They play
games.
9. Okay, so you win those 3. You win your 3 out-of-conference.
We're just talking about them waltzing in Kyle Field and pulling off a big-time win in week 2.
Yeah. That's a light prediction.
Just like that's nice and easy work.
You're right. I apologize. So 3 of those conference games I just mentioned, the lower teams, 2 out-of-conference games versus Hawaii and Morgan State. I feel pretty good about those. And then you got to pick up 2 more against the rest of the Big 12. Maybe that's a team like Kansas State, right? They are sitting. They're in fourth, but maybe you beat them. Obviously, I don't think you win at BYU or at Texas Tech. Those are kind of the two losses I think that are not unwinnable, but I would not pick them to win.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go under.
Okay. Do you think they make a bowl game? Prediction on top of
Yeah,
the
I think they can get
prediction?
to 6 wins.
Okay.
I think they can get to 6 wins, but
Sure.
I'm going to take the under on 6.5.
Where are we at, JP?
I'm taking the over. One of the things I wrote down is just like team strength this year is Kenny Dillingham. Period. I think he's good enough as a coach, and he's earned enough respect as a coach at this point to lead this team to winning some big games. I do think they went. They got 3 really tough road tests in the 2 Texas schools and then BYU, and then you include the last game of the year, which is at Arizona. That'll be huge rivalry game because it's the 100th time those 2 teams have played. So the century game right there. Those are 4 pretty big road tests, but I think Kenny Dillingham is good enough to win 1, maybe 2. It wouldn't shock me if he won 3 of those games this year. That's just how good he is. And then Arizona State at home is already such a tough team to play. I got them winning over 6.5 pretty comfortably. I like the fact that they have quarterback competition. I don't think we're talking about like 3 necessarily bad quarterbacks. We're talking about a top 10 quarterback in this last year's recruiting class, and then a freshman who started games in the SEC, and a guy who transfers in from Michigan as well. I think they've got good competition there, and they're in good weapons. So I think this is going to be a good team. I think maybe there's an outside chance they shock some people, and they're sitting there in the Big 12 title race and the college football playoff discussion as we get into late November.
Sure.
I feel like they might be if they did pull off that upset, it'd be the least shocking upset because they've already done it once, right? When the 2 years ago they went from preseason last place odds to go on and win the Big 12 and make an appearance in the college football playoffs. They might be like the underdog that doesn't surprise anyone if it did happen, because at that point that's just kind of what they do. That's what Dillingham does.
He's one of those people, that's when we start getting the narrative of like he performs better as the underdog.
Yeah.
He kind of feeds off of that.
Yeah.
All right, we got a lot of teams to get through, so let's keep this rolling.
Hey, one less than last week.
Get on the Baylor. Big season for Baylor Bears. Last season they went 5-7. Dave Aranda is firmly on the hot seat at this point. He really needs a good year. And where did he turn to in the portal to help him have that good year? The banged-up star, the diminished star of DJ Lagway comes over from Florida. I have a good quote I want to reference later about what Dave Aranda has said about DJ Lagway recently, but we'll circle back around to that. For now, JP, what does Vegas have as their 2026 win total?
They're favored to go under 6.5 wins, and they're pretty heavy favorites to go under that as well.
Okay, so I'll say it again. It's another team that Vegas is kind of like, they may make a bowl game, but like they're kind of right on that fringe, and really it's bowl game or bust. And I do wonder, I guess I'll start with this quick question. If they won 6 games and made a bowl, do we think that's goodbye for Dave Aranda?
Yeah, I think so. I think he has to do better than that. I just don't know, especially after was it the AD that got fired and kind of saved Aranda's job, because everyone kind of thought that he was about to fire Aranda, but the AD gets fired instead, and so he gets 1 more year.
I'm not that tapped in, so you could be right. You also could be just so wrong. I have no way of knowing.
I believe that's how it played out. But no, I don't think that would be enough. So they go 5-7, and then they were he was the head coach when they won the Big 12, right, in 2021. And we all know who the quarterback for that game was, obviously. Jack, do you know who that was?
Mississippi State legend, Blake Shapen.
I don't know if we'll give him that title, but Mississippi State former athlete, Blake Shapen.
He tried to help the team through some dark times. He hopped on board on the program when we were at our lowest, Levy's first year. He bought into the vision from day one.
That's fair.
There's a lot of respect for that.
That's fair. I appreciate that. I appreciate hyping the guy up. But yeah, he won it in.
So
what'd you say, JP?
I'm not going to be defending him.
Which is crazy because he spent 10 weeks of the 13 last year, defending him with his heart and soul.
Yeah. So won it in 2021, and then
Saw
since then,
Camario scramble one time and was like, Blake Shapen, it's like the, Andy from Toy Story, I don't want to play with you anymore. That was him with Blake Shapen.
well, they go 6-7, 3-9, 8-5 last. 2 years ago, and then 5-7 last year. So last year was kind of everyone thought was going to be a big year for Aranda. He gets Sawyer Robertson back for another year, but it doesn't play out. And so he, like you said, turns to DJ Lagway, who I'm interested what quote you've heard, because I heard a quote about a VR or a virtual reality simulator that he's been using to like practice and train.
Okay, I didn't see that. I saw something about Dave Aranda was basically like he like had to play in a box at Florida, and he was so boxed in, and like here we're letting him be free and experience like the freedom that should come with playing quarterback. Basically, like we're tapping back into his natural abilities.
Yeah.
And basically Florida killed him. So
Well,
maybe that's true, maybe that's not.
I heard I was listening to a podcast and they were breaking down how apparently Baylor has they use like virtual reality to practice, and Lagway is like using it, and then he's like turning the speed up so that like everything is happening faster. So that when
he's just on the Jaden Daniels training arc, because that's what Jaden Daniels does.
It clearly worked for Daniels. I mean, well, last year.
Yeah, Daniels has way more aura though, and that has to count for something.
Well, that's because he's good. If DJ Lagway was really good, if DJ Lagway had a really good season, then I think he would have aura.
He can't. DJ Lagway can't not throw 5 picks at normal speed. I don't get why we're like cranking it up to like 1.5 or whatever. Like the normal is enough of a challenge for you as is.
JP, what are your thoughts on the quarterback situation in Baylor?
Well, it's going to be Lagway that starts. There's just no way that doesn't happen. I do wonder, if we get to a point in the season, if it is Lagway who's struggling so much that people start calling for Lagway to not play anymore, for him to be benched. The quarterback situation outside of him is pretty dire, so we'd have to get to a pretty dire moment, meaning Dave Aranda might be already fired at that point, which is definitely something that's possible. If that were to happen, they might go to the freshman they brought in this year, Quinn Murphy. But Lagway is one of those guys that you watch. I assume there's a highlight compilation out there on YouTube. If you watch that, you'd think he's a first-round pick. It's a guy who can make all the throws necessary, very athletic, very natural throwing motion. The only problem is quarterback is a position that needs to be played just as much with your body as it is with what's in between the ears, and that is severely behind. So I do appreciate him going into VR and trying to get this up to speed. I'm kind of scared that it may be too late for that, and this is going to just be one of those quarterbacks that was being talked about for recruiting cycles for 2-3 years in a row. Big moment once he commits to Florida, finally gets on Florida's campus. We're calling for him to play over Graham Mertz for much of the season at Florida, and now here he is at Baylor, and this may not even be his final stop at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't want to see that, because the kid's got so much talent that he could play in the NFL, but that may very well be the path we're going down.
Yeah, I have a question, and I think this is going to be a fun conversation.
Sure.
But if you have more thoughts on the team, this is more about the head coach. So if you want to talk more about the team,
you have one more thought
on
the team, and that's obviously for the team to be successful, Lagway needs to be a home run out of the portal. But also a stat from last year, they lost every game that they didn't score at least 30 points, and now they're turning to another defensive coordinator, Joe Klanderman, I believe, coming over from Kansas State. And they also hit the portal hard for defensive pieces, because, that's kind of Dave Aranda's identity, for one thing, is like a defensive coach, blue-collar work ethic. We're going to get in the mud and grind it out, and that just hasn't really been the team of late. And so they're trying to get back to that identity, trying to establish a good defense, and that would go a long way to helping DJ Lagway, because honestly, even if Lagway ends up having a really good season, the defense doesn't get any better, it probably doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So my question to y'all, and either one of y'all can answer first or talk it out. What's the earliest Aranda gets fired this year? So look at the schedule.
Let me turn to the schedule,
Yeah.
which I had a point on the schedule anyway, so I'll also rattle that off. It starts off pretty Okay, I mean, you play Auburn in Mercedes-Benz to kick it off. Say you lose that game, right?
Not fired.
Not fired because, like, okay, that, you lost to Auburn.
Right.
It'll be a pro Auburn crowd.
Mhm.
And then you get Prairie View and La Tech.
They're not losing to Prairie View.
You're not really like this isn't La Tech's not very good.
Yeah, I don't expect you to lose to La Tech, so now you're 2-1.
We'll say you beat Colorado at home. The vibes around the Colorado program isn't really great right now. I have another good quarterback quote for them coming up.
Oh boy.
Then you go, Arizona State and then a bye.
You lose that, you're 3-2. Right? I think we're giving Arizona
I
State
think
the
it's
win.
probably mid-October is the earliest he gets fired, barring disaster.
Yeah,
I mean, if he loses to Colorado and just gets slaughtered by Arizona State, maybe they're like, the bye is a good time to fire him.
Mhm.
But I just don't really see that happening. So I think mid to late October is probably kind of the earliest window he's realistically fired.
Yeah, I think it's after like a loss at like you lose to TCU. TCU's ranked right now. Or I guess have they released the poll? They're ranked on the FBS schedules website, so I don't know if that's preseason or what. But you lose to TCU and then you lose at Kansas, and I think that's when they pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's when I say that's the earliest he could get fired. He could get fired after week 2 when they lose to Prairie View, but this is earliest within reason.
Yeah. Do you concur, JP?
I think it could be earlier. I don't think it's necessarily to the same degree of how much the season rides on it, but I think about Clemson last year and that game against LSU and how they lost that game in a really bad fashion, and then the very next week it's Troy who has a fourth quarter lead against Clemson. So I don't think Prairie View A&M is going to do that, but there's a chance, maybe it's tied at halftime, and we're in a spot where they may just make the call because that's a home opener. And if you lose in an embarrassing fashion to Auburn in week 1, maybe that's a spot where the fan base will kind of overrule what the administration wants to do with the season.
Yeah.
But that being said, I don't think the Auburn game holds that much importance as much as that LSU game did last year for Clemson.
Sure. Yeah.
And we all know you don't have to lose to get fired. You can win a game and get fired.
This is true. It has happened. I'm very familiar with that.
Shout out Jimbo.
And they really... So when we talked about what it'd take for him to get fired, ideally, not only does he not get fired early on, but you need to be racking up wins on the earlier part of the schedule because your last 3 games, it's at BYU, and then Texas Tech comes to town, and then possibly the hardest of them all, you go play in the cage down to Deku Stadium. You got to go play Houston, who should have a pretty solid team. Brutal 3-week stretch there. You could be looking at a pretty good season. Say you're okay, Baylor's above 500. They're 5-4, and then all of a sudden, boom, they finish season 5-7 to make a bowl game, and it's another really poor season.
Yeah.
So you really need to stack wins early if you're Baylor. That being said, do we think they make a bowl game and then hit their over under?
It's over under 6.5. I don't think I see 7 wins on the schedule, so I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm taking the under, which I feel like
Is
I'm
it
being
6.5?
That's what I have, but
Okay, cool.
that's from like
trust you.
4 days ago. So if JP, if you got a more up to date one, I made the spreadsheet 4 days ago, so I guess it could have moved in theory.
I think I'm just misremembering.
So 6.5. I'm taking the under on that because they do have to play some of the top teams: BYU, Texas Tech, Houston, TCU. Like you said, top teams in the Big 12, and then you go to Arizona State. We don't know what Arizona State's going to be this year, but we don't know what Baylor's going to be, and I trust Dillingham in that program a lot more than I trust Baylor and Aranda. So I'm going to take the under.
I'm also going to take the under. I don't really have great thoughts about this team. I kind of think Aranda's days are numbered. They could get to 6, but I don't really see a great season out of this squad. There's also some hate in that.
I'm taking the under as well. I don't
Sweet.
trust the defense with the lack of additions that they really made on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that stat you read earlier, Jack, is really troubling. Lagway hasn't been a quarterback that's leading, explosive offenses like Sawyer Robertson had been last year. So I just don't see them picking up a ton of wins if the only way to win is through shootout.
Yeah. Sweet. So we're all on the under, all on the same page on Baylor.
We
And
are.
Let's move on to kind of one of the teams of this podcast. The BYU Cougars. Great year for BYU last year. 12-2 out of basically nowhere. You roll into the season, big time quarterback controversy. In steps Bear Bachmeier.
Yep.
And he exceeds all expectations and then some. And he's
Which
back.
I didn't realize spent the spring at Stanford and then transferred into BYU.
Yep. An absolute godsend. I'm sure the Mormons, the LDS,
Yep.
would see it as such.
The members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
And he's back. He's one of the few quarterbacks in the Big 12 to be returning to his same team. They're ready to, roll, run it back. Does Vegas think they run it back? JP, what do they have the 2026 win total at?
Vegas thinks they're going to be up there, maybe not to the degree of 12 wins, but 8.5, and they're pretty heavy favorites to go over 8.5.
Yeah, you even had like the offseason win too with the whole Kalani Satake. I don't have to.
Satake.
Everyone thought maybe he was leaving, and then in comes Crumble Cookie CEO, and all of a sudden I'm not leaving. So like a big morale boost there in the offseason as well. They're really ready to roll into this next season. Thoughts on the team? Thoughts on Bear Bachmeier? Do we expect him to take a step forward, be more of the same?
Yeah, I feel like 8.5 is a little disrespectful to BYU and to Satake and kind of the program and also the players they have on that because they're going to return, like you said, they return their quarterback, which is huge, and Bear Bachmeier. They return LJ Martin, the running back, which is huge. I believe he was named preseason Big 12 Player of the Year at Big 12 Media Days.
True.
That's what I think I heard in a podcast, but I was doing other things while listening. But I believe he was Big 12 AP Player of the Year. They've got Bear's brother, Tiger, at wide receiver. I mean, that's the chemistry there, the backyard chem, like, that's got to be fire.
I need a Gus Johnson call of a Bear to Tiger touchdown pass. Like that may end his life, unfortunately.
In Gus's, that'd be really sad to see. But is there a better way to go out than making the Bear to Tiger call for a touchdown? I don't know if there is. That's how I'd want to go out when I'm ready. But yeah, I think that BYU fans should be really, really excited. I won't say they got robbed of the playoffs last year. I'm not going to talk about that. I don't think they were robbed.
They would have been in your playoffs though. If we had a Sanders
absolutely.
Oakley
They would have been. They would have been.
Invitational.
They would have been like a one. They would have been a 2 seed behind Mississippi State. Who Mississippi State gets in obviously on academics to the playoff. But yeah, it's a really exciting season, and I think that number is a little disrespectful. You look at the last 2 seasons; they went 12-2 last year, like you said, with 2 losses, both of them to Texas Tech, and then the year before that they go 11-2. And I can't remember who their losses to, but they got bowl wins both of the last 2 years. I just don't know how you look at a 10-win regular season and a 9-win, another 10-win. I'm not trying to do the math on the cuff as a mistake, but I don't know how you look at that and you think, yeah, 8.5 is the number. We know you're bringing back your quarterback who was a freshman last year and led you to those 12 wins.
I think it was an 11-win regular season.
And then they lost to the Big 12 championship and then lost the bowl. They won the bowl game. They won the bowl game
twice. Is what happened.
Yeah, I was talking about 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, my bad. I apologize.
But I just don't know how you look at that roster and look at the returners and in the important places and think, yeah, they're going to go from 11 wins to 8.5. But JP, what are your thoughts?
I'm a little more pessimistic on guaranteeing my BYU Cougars have a good season. That they again for the second year in a row.
See, this is what I just got to say real quick. This is what he does, right? He comes in. Who was the highest on BYU in our preview last year? And
you
JP clowned him. JP clowned him in the preview.
Follow through is a lot.
JP clowned him in the preview, and then spent the entire season claiming them as his BYU Cougars. And now he comes in here being all pessimistic, and I'm over here hyping him up.
Change of hearts happen.
Hey, we forgive, but we don't forget. Keep it up, JP.
Anyway, I am a little bit more pessimistic on this BYU team this season in terms of repeating success they've had the last 2 years. But I will say I do think this program is fully in the right direction and that they feel like one of those programs that is going to, perennially contend in the Big 12 with a team like Texas Tech and maybe some other forces in there. But this is the second straight year where they're losing arguably their best offensive player to a huge, a huge situation. Last year's is a little bit more kind of comedic for some people, but this past season's, or this coming season, I should say, Parker Kingston, who won't be with the roster this year, I'm not going to get into the alleged crime he committed because I don't feel like saying that word on air, but he will not be with the roster this year, and that is a huge loss to the receiver position. It really, unironically, makes a guy like Tiger Bachmeier one of like the threats for Bear Bachmeier to throw to, because L.J. Martin, who does return, is not just the receiving threat that you need him to be out of the backfield. I will say though, I do think this program is going in the right direction. Like I had said, you bring in some huge recruits this offseason. Ryder Lyons is a huge quarterback who's I think inevitably going to replace Bear Bachmeier whenever he's done, or Ryder is better than Bear. Bear's just he's one of those quarterbacks that is not conventionally super talented. He's just got a ton of heart. He plays through injuries to a decent degree, and he's just capable of making the throws that he needs to make to win. He likes using his legs, and so in games when he did get hurt, where he kind of lost his ability to use his legs, BYU did struggle a little bit. That's really both the two Texas Tech games last year. But this is a guy who's going to lead this team to, I think, a ton of wins. I just won't guarantee that offense is going to be good enough to win 10, 11 games in the Big 12, which is typically a conference that requires a ton of points. On the defensive side of the ball, though, I do expect them to be still solid. Maybe not as rock solid as they were last year, but they bring in a big linebacker transfer in Cade Ulave, a guy I really like out of Cal. And then they have some pieces that are already returning there as well. Maybe some pieces that we'll be looking at when we cover the NFL draft a year from now. So I think the defense might take a little step back. I think the offense might take a little step back. But I do think this is a team that contends for the Big 12. I'm not going to guarantee they take a step forward. This may be a step back year to then take another a step forward next year.
What do y'all think of
Sure.
and maybe dichotomy is the right word, maybe it's not, but I'm going to run with it. So you've got BYU, who are second in the Big 12 preseason odds at 8.5 wins, and then Texas Tech at 10.5. So 10 wins better, but so you've got 10.5, and then second place is 8.5. What do y'all kind of do with that information? Do you think that's relevant? And like maybe the Big 12 is expected to tear itself apart, and there's going to be one team left at the top. I mean, 2 wins better than the second best team, I feel like is a large gap. So what do y'all think about that? What does that indicate for the Big 12 this year in BYU?
I think it indicates kind of even JP maybe would disagree, but I mean, last year it kind of felt like there was a pretty distinct gap between Texas Tech and the next closest team. And I think that's going to just, continue, and we're going to see more and more of that. Now, obviously, we'll see quarterback-wise if that maybe makes them take a step back. But, like, the talent profile of that team is just very different from anyone else in the Big 12. So that gap doesn't really surprise me. And it does just kind of seem like it's becoming a conference of – and in, like, football, it's like, okay, every year Texas Tech, and then it's like, who's going to become the challenger? It's like Texas Tech and then everyone else. Texas Tech and then the Pack.
I agree with Jack to a degree. Like, I do think if you watch the culmination of the season, it was pretty obvious there was a discrepancy between Texas Tech and the other teams. As much as I tried to argue for my BYU Cougars at many times throughout the year, I do think in the preseason, though, if I remember correctly, there were like 4 or 5 teams that were right there, and we were thinking, okay, many teams could win the conference here. BYU was just not on the radar at all for that, and they of course surprised a ton of people. But I do, at the end, I'll re-agree with Jack. I think going forward, it is going to look like Texas Tech, and then who can kind of step up that year, and that can be dependent on a transfer class. That can be dependent on maybe one of these big coaches from the SEC or Big Ten gets fired and comes over here to the Big 12 and finds success in the Big 12. That could be many things. That someone bucks up, one of the Texas schools decides to chip in some more money. I think that's Texas Tech, and then whoever wants to step up that year. For me, I think it'll be BYU for many years going forward, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Win total's 8.5. I'll start us off. I'll take the over. Um, the way I look at it, they have two really big games on their schedule. Obviously, the rivalry game. It's in Utah, November 7th.
It's in Utah every year.
This is true, but it's in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Let me be more specific. Utah is the home team. And then they do host Notre Dame. Those are like their two really big games.
Yep.
Say you lose both of those, you drop another game. That's still 9 wins. I think 9 wins is very doable. I believe in this team. You talked about their recent success. Like this is a team and a program that just kind of churns out wins where they're currently at. So give me the over.
I'm
take
also
the over as
you got it, JP.
yeah, I'm gonna take the over as well. I think they'll get to 9 wins. I do think I reserve the right if they are at 10 wins, 11 wins that I get to say I was defending them all year because I imagine I'll defend them week to week.
Sure.
I do think there's some spooky spots in the schedule this year. While they have won the Holy War, 2 years in a row, I do think that is a huge game this year. But I'm looking at the Notre Dame game and then the week following that game, they play at UCF. And is there a chance for either side of the coin of the Notre Dame game? They win that game. It's a letdown game on a huge, road trip to UCF. They lose that game. Is it a letdown game the following week at UCF? That's just something to look at. Go ahead and start thinking about that as you go to sleep every night for the next 3 months. So that'll be something I'm thinking about as a BYU Cougar fan myself.
Sure.
And then I'm also taking the over.
All right, all on the same page.
Yeah, we are.
Not the case last year. We're all on board this year. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah.
We've not made it out of the letter B yet.
Well, there were 4 of them.
This is true.
That's not really
This is
our
true.
fault.
Cincinnati up next. Interesting year for Cincinnati in terms of there were a lot of weeks in 2025 where it's like, oh man, like Cincinnati has found themselves in a big game, and then they just kind of lost the game every time, and that led them to end up going 7-6 last year. Once again, never really won the big game, and then Brennan Sorsby leaves. They lose their prize quarterback. It wouldn't have ended up mattering, I guess, because
It would not.
Sorsby now can't play for anyone, but they have to look to replace him and kind of move forward with their lives. And I did see yesterday, not that this has any bearing on this preview, but their program is now being investigated based on the Brendan Sorsby incident.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for them.
Which makes sense. But that's an aside, I guess. JP, what's their 2026 win total after my ramble?
2026 win total is, again, seems to be the going story so far. 5.5, and they're pretty heavy favorites to go over 5.5.
So
That's at least
apparently
good.
every Big 12 team is going to make a bowl, but none of them are really going to do all that much.
I think the only
I mean, that's just definitely obviously. I mean, we just did
Yeah.
BYU and Texas Tech.
we'll get to
I'm
a
sure
couple.
There's a couple reekers in the conference, like maybe UCF probably has a win total of 2.
No, I don't know if it's their favorite to go
West
over.
Virginia, then maybe.
They're both 5.5. So depending on what the odds are, they might be bowl bound as well.
You never know. But cool, 5.5. I mentioned Brendan Sorsby. He's gone. He's old news. Who's replacing him? What are we looking at in the QB room?
I think we're looking at one of JP's guys, right? JP, you want to tell us about your guy, JC French?
I was just gonna. I wanted to make this point when we were talking about Sorsby, and I'll just go ahead and make it right now. I think they got better at quarterback,
Okay.
and that's a very biased take, as they bring in the transfer from GATA, Georgia Southern, J.C. French, the fourth, who had I will say, straight up, a disappointing year last year
Sure.
for the Golden Eagles. But I do think he rebounds this year with the Cincinnati Bearcats. I think he's going to look great in black, as he looked great in navy blue with Georgia Southern. This is a guy who's 6'1", a good pocket passing quarterback. Got a little bit of wheels to him. A red head though, which is pretty fun. I think this is guy who's just better than Brendan Sorsby, and that's a fully biased take. I will say on the Sorsby stuff, I if he had returned to Cincinnati, I don't know, how much of a talking point. Um, let's just say he didn't do any of the gambling stuff, never got accused of anything. I don't know how much of a talking point it would have been this year outside of the first round pick stuff. And I think a part of that story that was such an interesting wrinkle, I think for casual people, no one really, I don't think really anyone knew who Brendan Sorsby was, and it kind of, I feel like for some people was out of left field that he's a projected first round pick next
Yeah, everyone
year.
was like, who?
Yeah.
He played for Cincinnati last year. They were in some big games, but they never showed up in any of those big games last year. The disappointing loss to Utah and the disappointing loss to BYU. Um, they lost to Texas Tech last year, if I'm not mistaken, too. So I think had he returned this year, this is not a necessarily a team that would have been on a lot of people's radars anyway. Even with him being a first round pick potential candidate, I think J.C. French is not going to play himself into the first round pick candidate, but I do think as his what is I don't know. Everybody can play 7 years now in college football. What's supposed to be his last year of college football, I do think it'll be a nice ride off into the sunset for the Bearcats with J.C. French.
Sure. Looking at their schedule, they have kind of a a late October, early November three-stretch gauntlet. Texas Tech comes to Nippert Stadium, and then you go on the road. Or sorry, you get back-to-back at Nippert Stadium. Texas Tech and then Utah come to Nippert Stadium, and then take a trip to the cage, where maybe you get claimed as a victim. Got to go to Houston. Big-time 3-week stretch could kind of define the season. You pull a big upset there, get some big-time vibes. Maybe your boy French has a legacy game in one of those, goes 350 and 3 touchdowns, pulls off a big upset. But if you're looking for some fun, maybe in that stretch, and then also you end the season at BYU. So you got a lot of the big boys on the schedule here in the Big 12, and that's probably part of the reason the win total is so low. Over under 5.5. What are we taking here?
Well, before we get into that,
Yeah.
I was going to ask a question about coaching in Big 12. So what do y'all think the expectations are for Cincinnati as a whole from the fan base, right? So this is year 4 in the Big 12. They spent 10-ish years, 9 to 10 years in the American before that, and they were kind of dominant, right? I mean, they made the playoffs.
Dude, sorry, continue.
11 wins or more. They had a 13-win season in 2021, excuse me. And then since then, they've had the 3-win season in year 1 of Scott Satterfield, 5 wins in year 2, and then 7-6 last year. Does he need to have another year better than that, or if he has a 5-7 season, what are the expectations you think for Cincinnati fans now that they're in the Big 12? Do they want to be putting up those 9, 10-win seasons like they were in the American, or is this 7 wins? Maybe you go 7-6 with a bowl win. You win that 7th game in the bowl game.
Sure. A couple things on that. First, it's kind of hard for me to gauge because I don't know if I've ever met either in person or online a Cincinnati fan.
I bet they exist. They're out there. They're watching this video.
I know they're out there, but I don't really have a good finger on the pulse of the fan base. If they really are just appreciative of the glory years and they understand this is a new era and it's gonna be really hard for them to compete, resource wise and keep the talent in house.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're happy with 7-6 seasons, 8-win seasons. Hey, we made bowl games. We can try and win bowl games. Let's have some fun players in the building. Let's have some players drafted. Let's occasionally win a big game. I think that's really something that's got to change from last year to keep the fans happy. You can't keep laying eggs in your biggest games on the schedule.
Yeah.
Win one of these big games, and 7-6 feels a whole lot better, right? So if I'm them, I'm kind of understanding that that's a different era, and that's in the past, and I would obviously love to win 9 games, win 10 games, but I understand that's going to be kind of outlier seasons and not really the standard I'm hoping from my program. Cincinnati fans, if you're watching and you're no, we're actually investing a lot of resources, we expect a lot more, I would love to know, but that's just outside looking in. That's not really what I think is happening, and that's not really what I think a realistic fan should expect from the program.
Over under, or you got thoughts?
I think this is just kind of a year that you need to prove, you're going to continue taking steps in the right direction. Not that you have to win more than 7 games, to go 3, 5, 7, and then have to go 9. But I do think you want to prove at least. I think Jack makes a great point. You want to win one of those big games, especially one of those 2 games that are going to be at home, and I'm sure you're going to get one of those games as a night game as well. But you want to at least prove that last year, while I'm sure it felt like a disappointment when you had a quarterback like Brendan Sorsby, that you can go out there and you can consistently do that regardless of the quarterback play. And J.C. French is going to be a star in the Big 12. Again, biased. But a
Well, it's like
7-win season, I think, with J.C. French just will hold, I think, some more value than the 7-win season last year with Sorsby did.
sure. I mean, to be fair, like the Big 12 is the perfect place for a pretty good quarterback to go and become a star because of how much of an offensive league it can be.
Yeah.
And also, in terms of the outlook at Cincinnati's program, there is a chance, like, a pretty notable, former player for them suddenly has a pretty large amount of money at his disposal, due to who he just married. So maybe there's going to be some sweetening of the NIL pot coming in, into play. Just maybe.
You
I
don't think
I don't
he
really
had
know.
money at his disposal before?
This is different. This is night and day.
True. This is true.
This is a big difference.
Over under on 5.5. Where are we landing? So
I'll take the under.
So you think they lose 7 games, they win 5? Which 5 game you're giving them?
I mean, okay, you can, you season starts off with a bang. You're actually 3-0.
Oh, you only need 3 more. You're halfway there.
Correct. But then Kansas State beats you. You lose at Arizona. You lose at West Virginia.
Wow.
It's a really tough loss. And then you lose your 3-stretch, gauntlet: Texas Tech, Utah, Houston. Suddenly, that's 6 straight losses.
Yep.
You bounce back. You win at Iowa State. You beat Colorado, and then you lose to BYU.
Fall just short.
Tough 5-7
Miss
season.
out on the bowl game.
Hopefully, they keep their grades up and they're ready to roll. Get into a bowl game, but do good academic standing.
Yeah.
But yeah, 5-7. I'll take the under.
I'm also going to go under. That's kind of how I see their season playing out as well. And I will be interested to see, because that's not what we just talked about. I feel like that kind of season is not what we were just saying about proving you belong and, competing and winning a big game. I mean, you didn't have them winning a single big game. I think the ideal season is you take last year's season and then you switch like the BYU loss and the Baylor win, right? So you've got that big top 15, top 20 win, and then okay, you lose to the Baylor equivalent this year because they've got DJ Lagway or something like that. So this year it'd be beating BYU and then losing to like Kansas State maybe.
Sure.
I kind of think that's what you want to see out of the season, or maybe you lose to Arizona. That's kind of the equivalent of last year's Baylor. I think that's what the goal should be for the season, is that 7 wins with a win over a top 20 team.
Or do you think they get there?
No, I just said I took the under. I'm just saying that we are not predicting them to have the season we think they want to have.
JP, what are you thinking? I feel like you're going to ride with your guy, but
I'm taking the over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they have the best quarterback in the Big 12, so
naturally.
I think they'll hit the over. I think that first 3 weeks will give them enough confidence to find 3 more wins in the rest of the season. So,
do we remember
bowl eligible Cincinnati?
Do we remember what happened to his last year's projected best quarterback in the Big 12? Was it not Avery Johnson?
Yeah, I don't remember if those yeah, I guess that's a good point.
I'm just saying maybe Cincinnati fans. Sorry, I just read Colorado because it's on the screen for the next one. But maybe Cincinnati fans should be a little nervous after this prediction. And then if it hits again, then we can start. That turns into a bettable trend, right? Does that become a bettable trend, Mr. Best Bets?
That's 1 correct.
2. No, I'm saying I'm sorry, not hit. So if he is wrong by a lot again, that's what I meant by hit. So if he's mistaken again, is that a bettable trend?
I just don't really know how you bet that, but like what metric?
Over interceptions.
Yeah.
Colorado.
Yeah, let's keep moving. Colorado's rolling into kind of a big 2026. I feel like a lot of the Dion hype has died down. You know, we're this is going to be his 4th season. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
2 with Shador, and then last year with
4th season. Last season did not go very well at all. They went, it's crazy. You're so desperate for good quarterback play that Ryan Staub plays a good half, and what Deion Sanders calls him Martin Luther King Staub or whatever he called him. Like, you know, just so ready to crown him, and then he doesn't do anything else. They're going to look to bounce back and change that going into this season. Does Vegas think they will, JP? What is their 2026 win total?
So Vegas has them as pretty heavy favorites to go under 4.5 wins. So no.
Not at all. Do you think, I'll start with this question. Do you think they're at least going to maybe find a steadying force at QB play, running it back with Juju Lewis? Is he projected to be the starter?
Yeah, I think they'll start Juju, and I think they'd start him for the entire year. There's just no reason. I get maybe you think you might have found a little bit of lightning in the bottle with the one game that Ryan Staub was able to win for you, but Juju is a highly rated prospect that needs opportunities to develop and show that high rated prospecting. I mean, there's a reason that a guy like DJ Uyunglele continued to get chances is because he was a heavily recruited quarterback coming out of high school, and Juju's no different here. And so I think they owe it to themselves and to him to start him throughout the year, and then maybe you can build something with his play to where you go into the next year and you can recruit hard in the portal and maybe get a team. So I think try to win 6 games with Juju Lewis somehow, make a bowl, build some more belief back in that program. Is the way I do about it.
Does Dion have what it takes to develop Juju Lewis? Because the quote I mentioned, I had another quote, and it was Juju Lewis basically being like, "Yeah, last year we were just kind of playing backyard football.
I mean,
we were just basically out there having fun. It was high school football, and that's not really what I love to hear. And maybe he was kind of trying to say it in light of this year it's going to be different. Like we fixed that,
and they changed staff, right? They changed OC and DC, I believe, for the second time in Dion's tenure.
Yeah.
So that might be it might be trying to highlight that more so of which is not a great look because now you're just throwing your OC from a year ago into the bus.
But regardless, Dion's the person that made the call to hire that guy and kind of let that offense fly. I'm still, a little. Dion still seems very much just like a player's coach and not like an X's and O's coach whatsoever.
Which it isn't a great look because then you say, oh, okay, well, Dion's always been a recruiter, right? Like Dion goes out and he gets 5 stars. They currently, last year, they had the 15th ranked high school class in the Big 12, above just Oklahoma State. What's up, JP?
Well, I will say, I understand that point from the recruiting side of it, but from the transfer side, they hit a ton of home runs this year.
Yeah.
They brought in Boo Carter from Tennessee, who's a really good corner. I would imagine that is in large part to be coached by Deion Sanders before he tries to go to the NFL. And then they brought in a couple other SEC recruits in Fau, or I don't remember how you say his last name, from Texas, a linebacker. And then DeAndre Moore Jr., receiver for Texas as well. They also brought in another transfer from Oklahoma, another DB transfer from that Oklahoma defense last year. So he's not. I mean, I think he's so polarizing that for young, 18, 17-year-olds, it's kind of scary to be, in a spot where you're going to be coached by, Deion Sanders. It's not that because they didn't grow up watching him, but I think they've seen at least the clips so far in his years in Colorado. You want to talk about the first week he's there, he's telling the locker room I'm bringing
pack your bags.
I'm bringing my.
Yeah.
What do you say, Jack?
It was like pack your bags basically, but I think you probably have the quote closer to right than I do.
It's like I'm bringing my luggage with me or something.
Yeah,
I'm bringing my luggage with me, and it's Louis, is what he said, and that is, it's pretty polarizing for a young guy to feel like, oh, I'm gonna go in and get coached like this for 3 or 4 years. So maybe this is a trend going forward where guys who are kind of lost in terms of the kind of coaching they're getting at these big universities want 1 year, 2 years maybe with Deion Sanders to get some more pieces to get ready for the NFL. I think that's something that could definitely be a trend going forward,
sure.
and it definitely was something of note in this offseason's transfer portals. So I just think he's a little bit too polarizing for the 18, 17-year-olds. I wouldn't want to be coached by him, for 3, 4 years in college. If I felt established and I felt like I was maybe pro ready, I fully get, going to get coached by him, but maybe not as an 18-year-old.
Sure.
Yeah, they'll be hoping that the transfers work out, right? What was the over under was 4.5.
4.5.
So
You had me
lowest over
favored
under
on
we've
the under
seen.
according to Vegas. I'm just gonna take the under.
Wow.
I'm very bought out.
You're
What's
selling. I'm selling on Dion.
bought out is that a thing people say? Like I'm bought in, but do people really say I'm bought out? I'm fully
No.
out. That's the thing that's one of the
Yeah.
I'm just fully out on the Deion Sanders like being a winning coach. I think there's some lightning in a bottle in the earlier seasons. There was people hopping on board because it was like a fun name. I mean, I was doing a lot of the same, but
Yeah.
I'm not really just sure he has what it takes to be a coach at the Power 4 level. Maybe the adjustments, he realized after a really bad season, he made adjustments and we're ready to roll. But it's also just like he keeps having health issues, and like that
Yep.
is going to take people. I mean, college football coaches talk all the time about how much work this job takes and how much of your life you have to dedicate to it. And I just like can't imagine with if he has chronic health issues and stuff keeps popping up, like how much that takes away from his ability to be effective as a head coach. That sucks. There's nothing he can do to control that. Like that's just the way the cookie has crumbled. But like I do also wonder if there's some aspect of that that'll play into it. I'm gonna take the under.
Yeah, I don't this is a weird. I look at this Colorado like history and I kind of think USC, which let me just explain for that real quick. Because USC had that peak year with Caleb Williams, and since then I feel like Lincoln Riley has been selling fans on we're going to get back to there and we're going to be better. And I feel like Colorado, obviously the Caleb Williams thing was 3, 4 years ago at this point when they went 11-1 or 10-2 and just missed the 14 playoff. Colorado's was 2 years ago. They went 9-3 or 9-4, 9-3 in the regular season. But I do feel like in the same way that I look at USC and I say, what if that was it? Like, what if there is no getting back to that? What if that is where USC peaked? I feel the same way about this Colorado team. Is like, what if the 9-4 year with Shador and Travis Hunter at their peak? Like, what if that was it? That's kind of the similarity I feel. They make me feel the same way in that regard. But for that's one of the reasons I'm taking the under.
Yeah. JP, what are we thinking?
It's a season like last year for Colorado. Really, I felt like puts another wrinkle in that whole Shador Sanders conversation of why was this guy not a first round pick? Because he was, at least it looks like it, he was carrying this team, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that take with the way that his offensive line played at Colorado. I do feel like it was him and the receivers that really carried that team to a ton of wins. And then you look at last year, the year immediately following, the team is awful, and that is with should be at least good quarterback play with Juju Lewis and Kaden Salter. So I just think it puts another extra wrinkle in that, and this season I think we'll put another wrinkle in that for the Shador Sanders conversation. Uh, I think Colorado has an interesting year. They're obviously going to be part of headlines. Uh, we'll see them in a few games at some points. I'll see their first loss of the season when they play at Georgia Tech in week 1. I plan on going to that game just to see Deion Sanders because that's just going to be so cool. But I will take the under on 4.5. I think they win 3 games this year.
Yeah.
They have
sadly.
one of the rare 2 non-conference Power 4 opponents.
Yeah, Northwestern and Georgia Tech, both of them on the road,
Mhm.
which
Yep.
is tough.
Trying to get that money up.
Yeah, and so I look at that schedule and I think I see one Big 12 game that I feel good about, and that's UCF at home to finish the season.
It's kind of hard to feel good about that one,
Yeah,
just given where it's located. Like that, they could just be so dead on
yeah,
arrival.
they could they
November
could be
28th.
2-9 at that point, but we're all on the under.
Sweet, let's keep it rolling. What a delightful joy of a surprise Houston was last season. They end up hitting 10 wins. They go 10-3, led by Texas A&M transfer Connor Weigman. He goes back home. He played high school football in Houston and has kind of a big-time resurgent year, and he's going to look to continue that in 2026. He's back, but not only him, they return the most production out of any Big 12 team, kind of a lie because they're tied with Texas Tech, but still technically counts. So they're going to look to take that momentum from 2025 and keep it rolling into 2026. Does Vegas think they will do so? JP, what are we looking at for their 2026 win total?
Now, Vegas likes their season. They're of the I keep saying heavy favorites for something. This is the heaviest favorite I've seen on a win total. Um, it's roughly like 65% over 7.5 wins for the Houston Cougars this year.
I think it's a very fair line. Thoughts on this team, Sanders? Thoughts on their year last year? Thoughts on Connor Weigman? Whichever direction you want to take it there.
I just want to give a brief shout out to Houston for the program, and then also for Chromie, because when we went to College Station last year for the A&M State game, we stayed up till I believe 4 or 5 a.m. Rebuilding Houston because we were bought in on the program. At that point, they were let's see, what was their schedule? They probably had 6 wins. They might have been 5-2, something like that, somewhere in there. I don't remember the schedule off the top of my head, but they were a fun team. They were exciting. They were unexpected, right? Dark horses coming out of nowhere in the Big 12. We rebuilt them in College Football 25, the last good college football game that will ever be made, apparently, and stayed up to like 4 or 5 a.m. So shout out to Houston. Thank you for being the program that let us not sleep that night.
Sadly, I did just confirm Dean Connors is no longer on the roster.
Dean Connors was a dog. He was a dog in the rebuild. But
though.
I'm excited about the real players on the real field coming up this season, and I'm excited for Connor Weigman, but also I'm not saying that the 5-star freshman Keyshawn Henderson will be starting. I don't think he'll be starting. I'm Connor Weigman all the way, but it's exciting to have a 5-star sitting on the bench, kind of waiting in the wings.
Weigman's shown to be a little injury prone in his time as well, so having a talented backup isn't necessarily the worst thing.
Certainly correct. Not a problem at all. And then also in that backfield, who's sharing the backfield? Your guy.
Mekhi Hughes did transfer in, and I'm so interested to see how it goes. Because for y'all that don't know context, I took Mekhi Hughes 3rd overall in a college dynasty league, and he proceeded to just not play really for Oregon.
It's limited to SEC and Big Ten teams.
Correct.
So he transferred from Tulane to Oregon. Jack took him 3rd overall.
He was eligible, took him 3rd overall because I was like everyone else, and it's not like I really went out on a limb. Was like super talented transfer. He's going to lead that backfield, and not only did he not lead the backfield, he didn't play and announced he was transferring by like week 4 or 5.
Yeah, he didn't travel to Penn State, and it was over.
Clearly, there's talent. I think he could be a really dynamic running back in the Big 12. I hope it clicks for him. No hard feelings. But yeah, you just had to rub a little salt in the wound there.
JP, what are your thoughts on this Houston Cougars team?
Well, Jack, I feel your pain because I took Jaden Ott as my first-round pick. The talented transfer running back from Cal to Oklahoma, and I think he had 5 carries last year for the team.
And at least I feel like I got a bit of a cleaner break. Like by like week 4, he was like, I'm redshirting and transferring. Jaden Ott, I feel like the whole time there's a lot of like, well, he's like a little banged up and like, he may be ready to play. So I get what you mean. It's tough out there.
Jaden Ott was on my roster until roughly week 11, which kind of speaks to the thought that maybe he'll get going. And this is an Oklahoma offense that was
really
struggling
use it. Yeah.
to run the football throughout the year. So it just didn't make any sense to I imagine anyone in Oklahoma, and of course me. I'm excited to see Weigman. I thought he had a really good year last year, 37 total touchdowns. I think Houston Houston fans, whatever ones there are, which we did sadly see a couple like big games at Tedesco Stadium where no one was in attendance
Yeah, we
last
got to
year,
fix
which was
that.
really
Yeah,
weird.
what are we doing, guys?
We're gonna need some boots on the ground from
He,
Jackson at some point.
uh, he needs to be there because apparently they don't show up. But I think Weigman has another good year. I don't expect them to start Henderson, the 5-star freshman, unless Weigman, of course, gets hurt again. I think Weigman with Makai Hughes and then the receiver that returns and Omari Thomas, who was nearly 1,000-yard receiver last year. I think they've got a really talented offense. I think Willie Fritz is, starting to build something there. It helps to, bring in. I imagine there was some money involved in bringing in the 5-star
Probably just a little
freshman
bit, yeah.
quarterback. But it helps that people are, starting to buy in for this team. And so I think they're going to have again be one of those teams in the Big 12 that at least we think they're going to have a fun season and they're going to be a fun team to watch. And man, I can't wait for September 26th. I may have to go to that game. I'm not going to lie.
It'd be fun.
That would be a sick opportunity for you to see them as they play your GATA team. You look at this schedule, and Big 12, it is unfortunate. Tedesco Stadium does not get to host either of the biggest matchups currently on the schedule. Texas Tech is in Lubbock, and then Utah, they'll play in Salt Lake City. But even I think Kansas State, who's up there in the preseason favorites, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, I had to go pull it up.
You're
Kansas
correct.
State is, fourth right now, is on the road. They do get to host, I guess you could call this, it might be one of the most exciting games they'll host. They'll host Oklahoma State in October, mid-October.
Probably is their best Big 12 home game.
Right. Which is really unfortunate to hear, but
Well, you can easily spin that and be like, you just protect home field and you've suddenly racked up quick math. 4, you rack up 4 conference wins, and then you also beat Oregon State, Southern at home. That's 6.
Yep.
Boom, you're at 6 wins just protecting home field against teams that just
you go
none
and
of
beat,
them are really that great.
beat
and,
Georgia
you're
Southern
pretty
in
good
the
shape.
18 overtime classic.
Yep.
That JP will get to witness in person. That's
JP will actually
9.
storm the field in the 9th overtime before the call gets overturned and they get sent back to the bleachers.
Does JP storm the field no matter who wins?
Yeah.
He might be one of the few. Does he
Houston
wear a
wins.
Houston shirt under his Georgia
And
Southern
he
shirt?
storms the field and just gets tackled by security because he's one of 5 Houston fans in attendance.
But yeah, it is a schedule that sets up pretty nicely. You play Baylor, you play West Virginia, Colorado, Cincinnati. These are teams that we've either talked about and do not have good outlooks, or we will talk about and don't have great outlooks. And then you've got a team like Oklahoma State with big question marks. So it is a schedule that sets up well. What's the ceiling for this team? Is this a team that we could be talking about like an Arizona State college football playoff appearance, or maybe even an SMU, like you lose the conference championship and still make it at, I don't know if they get to 11-1 at Utah and at Texas Tech hurts. I think 11-1 is possible. I take that back. 11-1 is possible. I don't think they beat Texas Tech, and then you lose to them again in the conference championship, and now you're just last year's BYU.
That's what I was about to say. I just don't really think cultural playoffs is on the table. And that's fine because JP mentioned it, like they're building.
Right.
They're trying to build on last year. They're not there yet. They maybe wouldn't admit that externally, but like internally, I'm sure they're thinking that like our roster isn't necessarily talented enough to hold up through 12 weeks. Because you mentioned them going 11-1, and even that is like that's be
absolutely
insane.
a
That would be a
stretch.
stretch, just because like even if you go to Utah and win, like we saw it last year down the stretch for them. They started finding their way in a lot of close games. They lost 1 or 2 games that you kind of really feel like they should win that.
Yep.
Because their roster
Especially
one
that
is just
TCU
not
game.
crazy talented, but also it's just like not the deepest. So injuries start, stacking up, and you're in trouble. I am taking them the over. I really like this team, but yeah, I'm not ready to. And I know that's not what you're saying. But, I'm not ready to be like, Houston has arrived. Let's put them in the playoffs. Do give me the over of what, 7.5 though.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and take the over. My bad, JP. I didn't know who's going first. I'll go ahead and also take the over.
Y'all are in a standoff.
Yeah, staring contest over here. Who will not speak first?
JP won.
Yeah, he did win, unfortunately. I'll also take the over. This is a team that I like as well. And like I said, they won, I think, 10 games last year. So with the pieces they're returning, it's hard to – it's kind of like talking about BYU earlier. It's one of those teams where they're returning enough important pieces that I don't expect them to make 2-3 games in regression. I expect them to sit more around where they were last year and maybe lose one more game. But with this schedule, it has the 2 hard games, and then I feel like a pretty workable schedule the rest of the season. I'll take the over.
Sure.
I don't know about workable schedule, but they do have a big game week 4, which I know I've mentioned a ton. I do want to say one thing about that I haven't mentioned, and I know you guys don't know this because you would have mentioned it already, and it just now clicked in my brain. Would you guys like to guess the starting quarterback for Georgia Southern?
No. Is it TJ Finley, who's the guy that's played 11 years of college football?
Here's my hint. Former Texas A&M quarterback.
Well, that's what I was figuring, but I'm like, who in the world?
Not Calzada. Was
Calzada's
he?
out of eligibility, surely.
King has also got to be eligible.
Haynes King.
It's not Calzada, right?
Down.
Yeah.
Is it like? Is Jaden Henderson somehow still of eligibility? Okay.
Who were the guys that...
The other guy, the backup last year, went to North Carolina because we talked about him last show.
Mm-hmm.
Eli Holstein.
He's at...
We talked about him as well.
Pitt? Or no, he was at Pitt.
Is he at North Carolina as well? Dude, there's too many of them. Wait, okay. Can I get
another hint?
Yeah, give me another hint.
Way. He's left-handed.
He's left-handed. And you say that'll just give it away.
No, apparently not.
Apparently not.
This is kind of embarrassing for you. I can name every Mississippi State transfer quarterback who's floating around out there. They both play for USF.
How? Just another hint. When was he at A&M? As recent as last year?
He was...
Because surely not.
2 or 3 years ago.
2 or 3 years
3 years ago.
Gosh.
I think when they played... I think he played in the game at Miami, and they lost that game.
In the game at Miami, and they lost.
Suffered a catastrophic leg injury last year.
What?
Or maybe 2 years ago.
Did this guy actually play for A&M? It's going to be so funny if he just didn't, and JP's doing his Eastern Carolina thing.
Suffered a catastrophic leg injury. Max Johnson?
Yes.
He has eligibility? That is crazy. Yeah.
That's
Max
wild.
Johnson was Connor Weigman in week 4, Gata versus Houston. I say all that to say, or we say all that to say, I'm taking Houston on the over. I think they'll be one of our teams this year, and
100%.
I'm going to go ahead and start trying to plan that trip to watch them play at Gata.
Very convenient, too, that our kind of 2 teams in the Big 12 don't play each other.
Yeah.
So we don't really...
I mean, until the Big 12
Championship. But at that point, like, we've already won.
True. We storm the field either way.
Yeah.
If Big 12 and Houston play in the Big 12 Championship, podcast is going.
I was actually just... That's what I was going to say. If they somehow both play, like, I feel like we have to be there.
We'd be one of probably, like, 2,000 fans there.
That's a little harsh.
No.
It's not a far drive from Houston. It's like 4 hours.
I just feel like the Big 12 Championship is chronically underattended.
Well,
but
maybe it's true.
That was what my point I was making.
I mean, you're not going to see a good game, most likely.
Houston versus BYU would be an instant classic.
And that's why we would be there.
We'd get credentials, media credentials. We'd be on the field.
Yeah, because we called it first. We'd like send them this clip.
Yeah.
And be like, yo, you gotta hit us up.
Year 7 for Max Johnson, by the way.
I mean, he has had a couple really bad injuries, but like that is still crazy. Year 7.
All right.
Next,
Iowa State.
I would venture to say a bit of a disappointing year. Last year for Iowa State, you go 8-4, which isn't like a bad year. You know, that's kind of the what Matt Campbell did there to raise the floor was very impressive. But like with the talent, with Rocco Becht back, last year for yet another year leading the charge. You kind of hope for a little bit more. And then I think it stings even more the fact you have that year and then Matt Campbell leaves, Rocco Beck leaves, and so it kind of feels like, oh man, our one last hurrah that we didn't know we were having turned out to really not be all that fantastic. It was good, not fantastic. And so then now they have to look to regroup, lost a ton of talent due to the coaching change. And with that in mind, where does Vegas have their win total at for 2026?
2026, post-coaching change, favored to go over 4.5.
That is a low bar Vegas is setting. But let's talk about the team. It's a lot of transfers, obviously. But what do we think about the like you said, Jack? Last year's team went. What did you say?
8-4.
8-4. 4.5 is a huge step back from there. Do we think that's a deserved step back, JP? Do we think that's a number that you feel is good, or do you feel like that's kind of adding unnecessary hurt to the wound that Iowa State fans are still feeling?
I feel like one of the things that was talked about when Matt Campbell was kind of in those coaching searches, by really the only one that I at least heard, Josh Pate, he mentioned pretty much every single time how much Matt Campbell had really done with Iowa State. You know, how little of a football program this program was before him. And so I'm not shocked that once he leaves to take the Penn State job, that this team is maybe immediately back into kind of the depths, I guess you could say. Now, I would imagine they hope they can continue some success like they've had in the Matt Campbell days, but I'm going to be honest, I think their best player this year is their kicker, and that's not a good thing. Kyle Conradi, I think, is a goated kicker, really good kicker, but he is, at least in my eyes, I think their best player this year.
Yeah. Just for quick reference, before Matt Campbell, the last time Iowa State finished above 500 was 2009, and then before that was 2005. So they had two above 500 seasons, and from 2005 to 2017. That was Matt Campbell's first above 500 year in year two. So absolutely massive improvements. And then he only had 1 year below 500 in 2022, his entire tenure there. So he did absolutely kind of change the way that program was viewed. And I do kind of think that we could find them back in the bottom of the Big 12. The preseason odds, they are dead last or tied for dead last with Colorado and Cincinnati, two programs that are also kind of reeling. Colorado from the loss of 2 stars in last year's NFL draft, and then Cincinnati from kind of an inability to retain talent that they developed in-house. We saw it in Brendan Storsby this last offseason, kind of struggling with the adjustment to the Big 12 coming over from the American. So it's not really company you want to be keeping, and it's a big drop-off. I mean, you go from UCF at 13 at plus 4,000 to plus 10,000 where those three teams are tied. Not great company for Iowa State. But, yeah, Jack, what were your thoughts on the team?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with what y'all are saying. I mean, they're looking to start 16 transfers. Jimmy Rogers is the new head coach. He has a couple years at, I think, South Dakota State. Now I'm like, was it South Dakota or North Dakota? I think South Dakota State.
We don't have. There are none of those fans watching. They're the same.
Coached last year at Washington State, and now takes over the job. He played at Iowa State, but like a pretty inexperienced guy, which makes sense. That's who they get. That's kind of all they really can. They're going to take a bigger swing because why not? Starting quarterback maybe going to be Jalen Rayner, hailing from Arkansas State. Put up good stats there. But
Did you say he played at Iowa State?
Yes, I thought he did.
I think he played at South Dakota State, which is probably
that's where
he came
was.
from.
Yes.
He came from South Dakota State, played there.
There. I apologize. Not an alum. You might as well fire him, hire an alum at this point. Who was their quarterback like 4 years? Oh, no, Brock Purdy. Maybe you can convince Brock Purdy to retire and become coach.
It didn't go straight from Brock Purdy into... Did it?
No, there probably was a year gap.
There has to have been.
Anyway, there's a step up in competition for Jalen Rayner. So, can he make that happen? There's just a ton of unknowns. And given what we've just talked about, we know their resource pool isn't very good. So, there's not really tons of reason for them to be expected to suddenly be able to reload in the transfer portal. Like, oh, you're starting 16 transfers? That terrifies me.
I will say, so on 3, if you just look at the guys they brought in, they rank second, which is crazy to me. So the average rating of the players they brought in was 60. Wait, is that sorted by total? Oh, that's sorted by total. Never mind. I can't sort by quality.
I'm assuming they brought in a ton of transfers.
They did bring in 50, which
shot.
was the second most in the Big 12 behind Oklahoma State. And then by on threes, like in and out metric, they finished 16th in the Big 12, which is not ideal. Did not have a great high school recruiting class either, finishing 11th in the Big 12. So this is really going to be, like you said, I mean, this is a new head coach, not a new head coach, but new to the G4 or new to the FBS. And so this is going to be kind of a year of.
I mean, Washington State counts as FBS. It's FBS.
Was he at?
Yeah, it's been a year at Washington State.
Oh, okay. I thought you said as a coordinator. Apologies. But anyway, this is going to be like a prove it year for him, right? So he comes in and kind of shows recruits and portal guys and fans and boosters and all that. You kind of have to show what you're made of. Ideally, you can win a game that people don't expect you to win. I don't know if a bowl game is in the cards. Like we said, the over-under is 4.5, and so Vegas certainly thinks not.
I mean, just don't have a disaster of a season is where I'm at.
And so don't have a disaster of a season. Don't have an Oklahoma State season like last year where they went 2-10, 3-9.
It's not great.
You don't want to have something that atrocious. You try to maybe you go over, you're over under, and you hit 5 wins.
They are trying to be Oklahoma State. They brought in Zane Flores, as a potential quarterback option for them. So they may be trying to run back that method, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of the goal: is don't have an atrocious season. Prove yourself as a coach. You don't have outcoach some guys in big situations, right? That's kind of the thing that state fans, that we are all state fans here in this podcast, are mad about Lebby for some situations where he mishandled in a situation, didn't call the timeout at the right time, passed the ball when it felt like he should have run, or run when he felt like he should have passed. Just little things like that left a fan base feeling uncertain about the coach. Don't have that kind of season. Is what I would say if I were Jimmy Rogers. So
Good news for Jimmy Rogers. It's hard to be in spots where you really need to manage the clock when you're losing by 3 scores.
True.
Take some of the pressure off. I'm taking the under.
Taking the under.
I'm taking
the under on 4.5.
Taking the under. I mean, I'll pull up their schedule real quick.
I'm looking at it. Southeast Missouri to open.
And you will say you beat Bowling Green.
That's 2. West Virginia at home.
Say you beat West Virginia.
That's 3. Cincinnati at home.
Okay, we say you beat Cincinnati at home. That's 4. And I don't really feel great about. Okay, yeah, you definitely beat West Virginia. You definitely beat Cincinnati.
Yeah,
I'm taking the under. I think this will be one of the worst teams in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think you have to give them a lot of wins in order to get to that 5. You got to give them Cincinnati or West Virginia, and then you got to give them at UCF as well. On top of that, it is a tough look, and I think I'm also going to take the under. So that's 2 unders, JP.
Ooh, here comes JP being like, well, I've actually watched a lot of film on Trainer, and I actually am really excited for what I think he's going to bring to the Big 12 next year.
No, unlike whatever, I forgot what that guy's first name was, but Dickens from the ACC, Taron Dickens, I think.
Yeah.
Name. I do have the quarterback right here. I think we may be looking at. I'm kind of curious with Rayner if we're looking at kind of a similar season to what Devon Dampier had last year, where there's some games where it shines, but there's definitely some games where the upgrade in talent competition just is a huge step for him. It's Rayner's final year in college football, unlike Dampier, but I just don't know if the production will be there. I will take the over though, and I think they just find some sheer luck and find 5 wins.
It's not that hard to find 5 wins, so that does, in a sense, make sense.
Kansas.
The Jayhawks, Kansas Jayhawks. Sorry, I'm trying to cycle back through my notes. Kansas went 5-7 last year. Not necessarily the most impressive season, but for a Kansas program that for a long time was just downright horrible, maybe Kansas fans are still really happy about 3 conference wins in one season. They're rolling into 2026, though. What's their win total at, JP?
5.5, and they're favored to go over that. So we're back to teams that are right there on bowl eligibility.
Yep. Key players for this team in 2026. Either y'all got a guy who's going to be trotting out there at the helm for the offense, quarterback in the team.
For the first time in a long time, it will not be Jalen Daniels.
End of an era.
Jalen Daniels,
Yeah,
not to be confused with Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I mean, I remember last year. I don't know. I'm talking about Jaden Daniels. He's not on the team, but I do. It is the end of an era, so I feel like that deserves to be mentioned. It's a new guy. JP, what can you tell us about Isaiah Marshall, an in-house guy?
I don't know much about him. I won't lie. I have the video game pulled up right in front of me, college football.
Sure.
He's a pure runner with
Okay.
86 speed.
Okay.
This is a guy who's going to use his legs this year.
Sure.
Apparently, I don't have a lot of hope for them. I do have some hope for some of their other offensive pieces, though. Like Nick McMillan, I think is a really good receiver for them. And then Dylan Edwards, formerly of Colorado from the Shedeur Sanders team, played at Kansas State last year, kind of dealt with injuries, and now he transfers to Kansas from Kansas State. And he should be, I think, a productive back this year for the Jayhawks. But I don't have a lot of thoughts on the quarterback room outside of what this video game is telling me right now.
My only thoughts on the quarterback room is I'm going to just venture to say they're taking a step back from what they had at the helm with Jalen Daniels. Even though Jalen Daniels could have his bad performances, he still brought a lot to the table as a quarterback, and I imagine they will miss that. Even just from once again, this is a program that went through a long stretch of being horrible. It's, was very exciting at the very least to have Jalen Daniels be your quarterback. Now, if this guy is a runner like that, maybe he brings a lot of that same excitement. But
didn't something happen with Dylan Edwards in the opening game in Ireland? Did he get hurt?
I feel like we figured out that was all fake.
Okay.
But people were faking a transfer announcement after that game or halftime or something like that.
Okay,
I think
I couldn't remember.
But he did muff a punt in that game.
That's what it was. I knew that there was some big storyline where we talked about Dylan Edwards a lot after that game, and he didn't play in that many. He only played in 4 total games, and they were all in the first half of the season. So I knew there was something crazy going on. I don't have anything else to say.
I'm ready to pick over under.
If there's no Jalen Daniels to talk about for this Kansas team, there's no Les Miles to talk about.
I'm really sorry for any Kansas fan that decides to watch this video. We gave you a lot of good insight on your team going into 2026.
Well, you can drop insight for us in the comments, and we will read it. We try to read and respond to everything, except the ones that are mean we'll laugh at and won't respond. But if you have something productive to say, we do like hearing about it from fans.
It'd also be very helpful if you could provide good grammar and context to your comments, because we get so many where it's I don't really know what this is trying to say. I can't tell if they're mad, if they're happy, if they're agreeing or disagreeing, and it makes it really hard to engage with the fans when I have no idea what's going on. So yeah, maybe if you just put a little thought into your comments, I'll be way more likely to get back to you.
My favorite are the ones where I can tell that the person was literally smoke was coming in their ears as they typed it.
You bozo.
There were so many typos that they were clearly shaking from the anger they felt. But yeah, we can get into picking this Kansas 5.5.
Over under 5.5. I'm trying to pull up their schedule right now to make sure there's no crazy wrinkles before I make my pick. And of course the website.
They play Missouri, obviously, as they do every year.
Ooh.
Early bye week. Long Island.
Yes,
the
sir.
Sharks.
Fins up. I may be that's gonna be a big one. That I'll be rooting hard for an upset. I didn't even know they had a football team.
I didn't know. I had no clue.
That's actually really cool. Yeah, they're in the Union Jack Classic. That's right. So they have that early bye. Middle Tennessee. I'm gonna take the under.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take the under.
Same.
I think they'll win a couple conference games, or I don't think this is a team that's gonna get skunked and go 2-10 or something like that. But I am still gonna take the under. Clearly not the most informed opinion here, but I am gonna take the under.
Yeah, I will also be taking the under. Baylor's their most winnable conference game. UCF, excuse me, is their most winnable conference game.
I don't know, man. Alonzo Barnett is going to be leading that UCF team.
I am excited about that. I am excited to talk about that
he
later.
could bring a lot of energy and fire.
But there's still the most winnable game.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's winnable. It's just the most winnable.
You would like to have one of West Virginia or Oklahoma State at home, but not the way the cookie crumbled.
Yep. JP, what was your pick on the over/under?
I'm going to take the under.
Sure.
Low on the Jayhawks this year, and that in large part is due to the lack of knowledge on if they're going to have good quarterback play.
I feel like that is hard to predict when you have a guy who's been on the bench for 2 years.
And I'm just not going to I just don't imagine anyone with any sort of great quality is riding Kansas's bench in this current era.
Yeah.
Could be wrong. He could come out and just set the world on fire. But yeah, I don't really feel like that's the most likely of scenarios. Shall we move on to their in-state rival?
Let's do it.
Pretty disappointing 2025 for Kansas State. They only go 6-6. JP especially was disappointed in them. He had really high hopes, and the team and in Avery Johnson both disappointed him. But hey, they have a new head coach. The Golden Boy is back. Colin Klein left Texas A&M. He's now, like I said, the head coach. Big first year for him. I'm sure in the building and in the fan base, there's really high expectations for what he can do as a head coach. I, for the most part, enjoyed him as an offensive coordinator. I didn't enjoy him as an offensive coordinator when he was also trying to be the head coach for Kansas State. Didn't work out very well, but that is what it is. They're going to look to bounce back from 6-6. Does Vegas think they'll bounce back? JP, what's their win total? Probably going to be 6.5.
Vegas does think they win back, or
Okay.
bounce back, I should say. Their win total is 8.5, with the slight favorite to going under that.
8.5. Well, that I said 6.5, and then I was like, okay, 7.5 probably is actually way more likely. So 8.5 surprised me a little bit, just with, once again, weaker season last year, new head coach. But what do y'all think are the reasons for that optimism? Do you have anything y'all can point to for that?
This is actually more pessimism than optimism, but
Okay.
since we're going to go ahead and start talking about the team, I'll just go ahead and say it's really unfortunate. I feel like oftentimes when you go get a coordinator, I think specifically about Cal and the guy they brought in from Oregon, Josh Lupoy.
Yeah.
They bring him in from Oregon, and he brings these like 3 or 4, maybe 5, like really highly rated former prospects, like redshirt freshmen from Oregon. Do you know how many players Colin Klein brought from College Station with him to Kansas State?
I know of one.
He brought one. It was a wide receiver.
Isaiah Williams.
Yeah. So
Made a massive catch in that big-time comeback against South Carolina.
yeah, that's huge, but
I
it's
do
just
think he had 3 total catches on the season or something like that, but that was a big catch.
yeah. It is just unfortunate, and I feel like if I were a fan of a team that was kind of going into a new era, I would want to have some excitement about like the guys that my coach was bringing with him. And he doesn't really have that going into this year, at least.
Here's what I think most people probably banking their excitement on is Colin Klein. Colin Klein was a Heisman finalist for us. If there's anyone who can unlock the potential in Avery Johnson as, can make him more of a quarterback than just a guy that has great legs and can occasionally make a big throw, it's Colin Klein. Like, we're banking on a last hurrah in Avery Johnson of finally he takes a step forward, because he didn't happen last year, right? And I think if you said I'm completely out on Avery Johnson ever becoming a great quarterback, I think you'd be very fair to say that. But yeah, I think they're really banking on Colin Klein to kind of unlock him a little bit. And I mean, there is some other excitement on this team. Isaiah Williams, I do think he's a pretty talented kid. I think he'll make an impact. He'll have more playing time on this team.
Right.
They still have that big time 5-star tight end on their team, Lincoln Cure or whatever.
Yeah,
He's
I forgot about him.
Like, I'm sure it's year 2 of him. They're ready to roll with him. They're probably talking about he just put on 30 pounds in the offseason of pure muscle and is now running a 4.3.
And he's like 4% body fat.
Yeah, like he's a beast. There is some reason for optimism, but I do get what you're saying. It would be a lot better if they were like, say he pulled off a heist and it was like, oh my gosh, Reuben Owens is coming to Kansas State, but just not meant to be. Didn't happen.
Yeah. That's just when I think about the coordinators who, like, I feel like brought guys with him, and I remember specifically with Cal. And then we talked about so UCLA obviously hires Chesney. He wasn't a coordinator, but I believe he brought some JMU guys with him. Who was it that hired the former Commanders?
Stanford.
Stanford, right? They hired him as a head coach, and obviously didn't bring anyone with him. And I feel like for me, that was like a cause of pessimism, right? A little warning, red flag that goes off of like he's not really like bringing any of his guys to him, which is kind of the standard in this current era of the portal. I mean, even Jeff Lebby didn't bring him in year 1, but in year 2, he goes and brings in Brennan Thompson from Oklahoma. I feel like that's kind of like the lifeblood of first-year head coaches who are former coordinators is you kickstart your tenure with one of your guys from your old program who just loved, like, being one of your players and loved your coaching style. And was like, I want to go play for that guy as a head coach. And we don't really have that a lot with Colin Klein in year 1.
Sure. We've been doing a lot of talking. Thoughts, JP?
Yeah, Kurt Cignetti was a huge proponent of that. Not different to not coordinator to coach, but coach to coach. A lot of JMU guys followed him to Indiana and kind of built that. Guys like Kamara, the edge rusher, Elijah Surratt is a guy who came from JMU and came over to Indiana. And it does seem to be a thing. When that occurs, you find success in that.
Last year's quarterback a JMU guy. The one who got drafted to Canadian Football League.
Curtis
York. Curtis York.
Yes.
Rourke.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say not Mendoza. Rourke. Yes.
But yeah, he was the quarterback, I believe, at JMU,
Rourke
and then
got
they
drafted in both leagues. No,
I believe so. Yeah. And they went 10-2 year 1. So like obviously he wasn't a Heisman finalist and first overall pick, but they won 10 games in year 1, and he was a part of that. So just another example of that working out.
Yeah, Colin Klein should have got Marcel Reed. That should have been
priority number 1.
Yeah, he should have made that happen. He did not.
But he's trusted in Avery,
Fair enough.
Curtis Rourke did not play at JMU.
Some
by
could
the
say
way,
Marcel Reed, and you just okay, cool.
He played at Ohio. I just assumed.
Some could say Marcel Reed and Avery Johnson aren't the most dissimilar of quarterbacks.
Why are we comparing them?
A pretty interesting talking point. I can't lie. I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm pessimistic on Kansas State this year, even with Colin Klein.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
The program will head in the right direction eventually. I think a lot of these coordinators that are coming from these SEC schools and then coming down, taking a step down the ladder, whether that's toward the Big 12, the ACC, or even a Group of 5 team. I think you're seeing a lot of success out of these guys, and it makes sense. So I do think this program will head in the right direction. I just don't think they have the quarterback there with Avery Johnson. I don't think they unlock it this year. I think that ship has sailed, sadly, and I just think they are going to disappoint again in big games this year that they feel like they should win.
Yeah. I mean, personally, for me, I think the biggest cause for optimism is no Texas Tech, no Utah, no BYU on that schedule. You dodged the preseason 3 best teams in the conference. And I think that really is probably one of the reasons the win total is so high, even if and
probably one of the reasons they're projected they have the 4th best odds to win.
Like you could kind of coast, and I mean you're gonna lose some games, or at least we think the team's not good enough to just even with the weaker schedule just cruise through the whole thing. But I mean, Nichols, Washington State, Tulane, first 3 games, probably gonna be 3-0.
Yep.
Not a guarantee. There's some decent teams in there. At Cincinnati could win that. Say you lose to Houston, then you beat Kansas.
I would even give them you're coming off a bye.
Sure, we'll say you beat Houston and you beat. You could be 6-0.
Yeah.
But once again, we don't really think they're that good, so that's why I was you probably lose to Houston. But yeah, the schedule's just not that hard. But the 8.5 is I will take the under on that. Easy bowl win team. I think 7 or 8 wins, but 9 does just seem pretty steep.
I'm gonna push back. You sold me. The schedule being easy. And
I'm
then
also an Avery Johnson hater. I don't think Colin Klein unlocks Avery Johnson. I'm not sure there's anything to unlock.
Maybe that's the case. I'll be interested to see, does he change up the hairstyle for his last year?
I think the only way he does if like it's week 7 and things have gone bad,
Yeah.
and it's like he needs one last gasp. Suddenly we have buzzed Avery Johnson.
And then they go on a 5-game winning streak, win down the stretch, win out. I'm going to take the over. You sold me on the schedule primarily, but I think new coach, new players. Even if he didn't bring in, the former 4 stars from his former program, like other coaches have around the country, or former producers, right? He brought in one guy with him who was a producer, big catch, like you said. But I think the excitement around the program, I think, is enough to push them over the top and get them to 9 wins against that pretty relatively easy schedule.
Where are we at, JP?
Oh, I'm taking the under. I forgot I did pick it. I'm gonna take the under. Like I said, I'm pessimistic. I think they just lose some games that they're supposed to win. Kind of like what happened
Yeah.
last year.
Very, very fair. Let us keep on moving on then, and this gets us to top 3, top 5 most exciting teams in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I mean, partially because we were big time North Texas fans on this podcast. We were big into Drew Mestamaker. We loved the running back. We really liked the coach. They were a ton of fun. We previewed a couple of their games, and we didn't necessarily do a ton of group of 5 games, but there were playoff implications on the line in some of them. And a lot of that bunch, including the head coach, goes to Oklahoma State because last year Oklahoma State went a whopping 1-11, and so they decided it was well past time to make a coaching change, and so that they did. Thoughts on this team? Thoughts on the players they brought from North Texas? Thoughts on the coach? Thoughts on other players they got in the transfer portal? Whatever y'all got, give it to me.
They
Well,
brought. Go ahead, JP.
I was gonna say, I'll go ahead and tell you. Looking at, the video.
I also I just completely choked it because we need their over under.
You're right. Their over under for this season is 5.5, and they're heavy favorites to go over 5.5. So another one of those bowl eligible teams.
They're in that cluster.
But as far as the roster is concerned, their 4 best players in the video game all come from North Texas last year. That's the 3 offensive players, and then a linebacker and Wes Lowski. Sorry, I should be able to pronounce that name, give it my last name. But Mestamaker, Caleb Hawkins, and then Wyatt Young, who was Mestamaker's leading receiver last year. So talk about the kind of the opposite of what Colin Klein did. A little harder to do because a little harder to get the guys from A&M to go down.
Sure.
A little easier to get from North Texas to Oklahoma State, but complete opposite in bringing producers from that North Texas team that was kind of in a little bit of playoff contention last year. And so it does bring a lot of excitement to a fan base that needs it, a fan base that dealt with a lot of years of Mike Gundy, some really good seasons, including a season where you're a play away and literally inches away from making the college football playoff, the 4-team playoff. Unfortunately, that goes awry, and then you just have some disappointing seasons as well. For a while, it almost kind of felt like with Gundy, they were not on par, but pretty darn close to win to Oklahoma in terms of those teams in the Big 12. It felt like they could be competitive with them year in and year out, but that program completely changed over the past few years. And now you hope with Eric Morris that you can find some success and be one of those teams that can be competitive in the Big 12 year in and year out.
I'm really excited personally. Sometimes I really worry, and I think more often than not, I really worry about players making the jump, jump in competition. But I'm pretty confident, like the trio of Mestamaker, Young, and Hawkins are
yeah.
There may be some hiccups, there may be some growing pain moments, but I think for the most part they're going to have no problem being productive in the Big 12 week in and week out. I want to give a shout out to my boy Donovan Green, former Aggie, old as dirt now, but he is they're a tight end. I didn't know that till basically just now, but it should be fun. They're basically doing the ultra transfer method. Like they're probably going to start 20-ish transfers.
Yeah.
And it's deserved because the cupboards were very bare.
Yeah,
There weren't cupboards, to be honest. It was just nothing.
Yeah, the kitchen had been ripped
yeah,
out, and
yeah.
they're now rebuilding the kitchen from scratch, including the cupboards. Yeah, if you look at our lads, it's crazy because they color code it, so returners are in blue, transfers are yellow, and freshmen are in purple, and the entire projected starting offense is just entirely yellow, and the defense is all but two.
And I mean, even like you looking at it, like most of the backups and even like the third stringers, which like I mean at that point, like who knows who's really what. There's just so much red.
Yeah,
or orange, so much orange.
Oklahoma State led the Big 12 in the transfers, led the entire country, in transfers out with 56, and led the country in transfers in with 65. So they added a lot of new faces. Obviously, a lot of those faces are not new to Eric Morris, right? They followed him from North Texas. I was just counting now. There's like 15 to 20 guys, including the big ones, but some lesser known guys, some 3-stars who obviously Eric Morris has an eye for talent and his ability to develop, given that he hit on 3 guys over the past 2 years, like you said, in Mestamaker, Caleb Hawkins, and then Wyatt Young. So he does obviously have an ability to evaluate players that other teams missed on, and so you have to wonder, are some of those other guys that note that On 3 didn't give a 4-star label, are they just a year away from breaking out as well? Like this Oklahoma State team, like you said, I mean, we've already said it's going to be fun. There are some downsides to it, but it's gonna be fun.
Real quick before we pick over under, I gotta give one more shout out. Former Aggie Eni White is also on the team. Aggie by way of Penn State was his most recent stop. But I mean, just the arc of some of these players is so crazy because he started A&M like a little bit of like a leaner off-ball linebacker. Oh, what do you know? Defensive tackle, 6'5", 300 pounds.
That's crazy.
He has really transformed his body with immunity, please, and it is really going to look to fill a different role. So, yeah, I hope he has a good season. I'm picking the over. I think this team get to a bowl game. I truly believe that, and also there is some, like, I hope this team is good enough and fun enough to really make that happen. I do worry they're going to be in a ton of shootouts.
Yeah. Quick shout out to the home crowd though for starting the whole tarps off thing. I believe that was an Oklahoma State game, was it not?
JP is concurring with you.
Yeah,
it was. It wasn't the first instance of that. One of the first instances was at an Indiana game in like 2021.
Okay.
Or 2022.
But I feel like
they were the first one to do it last year.
Yeah, and I feel like has become more popular since then. Maybe that's more of what my Twitter feed is. But they're gonna get some big games. They host Oregon and they host Texas Tech. Their 2 ranked opponents as of right now will both be in Stillwater. Unfortunately, I think they'll both be losses, but it could be some entertaining football happening in Stillwater, which is not something they got a lot of last year.
This is true. I do wonder, since it's year one, some new players, if those games will quickly get not entertaining. Those will be the games where it's like the talent is just so much of a disparity that it's just a slaughter. But I do think they'll be playing a lot of fun football for the first time in a while in Stillwater. I'm the over. Did you make
what was the number?
5.5.
Yeah, I'm taking the over as well. Because outside of that, they play West Virginia, UCF, Colorado, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas. I'm taking the over. JP?
I take the over as well. When we talk about the excitement that we're going to see for this team, I think the excitement is in the first 4 weeks. That first game is Tulsa is a big game. It'll be the 3rd year in a row they've played Tulsa. They won at Tulsa 2 years ago. Tulsa came and embarrassed them in their building last year. And now this is the rubber match, so to say, in week 1 at Tulsa. So it's a big start. And then is that a look-ahead game to Oregon coming in? That's also a game you got to get some revenge a little bit because Oregon beat you 69-3 last year. And if I'm not mistaken, that they were the the Sarah McLaughlin special that week for Josh Pate.
Probably.
I
That
think
sounds
probably deserved.
familiar.
Yeah, if they weren't, they should have been an honorable mention for that. I'm pretty sure they were. Murray State should be a win, but then week 4, it's your first Big 12 game and it's at West Virginia. You should win it, but Morgantown is a tough place to play. So I'm looking at those first 4 weeks as kind of a litmus test to see how the season's going to go for Oklahoma State. I don't expect them to beat Oregon, but I would like that game to be competitive. It's also it's a noon kickoff game, so Oregon should be sleepy, so to say, for that game. And on ESPN, it's a big moment early on for Eric Morris and the Cowboys.
If they
Sure.
come out of those first 4 weeks at 3-1, I feel like the odds they have a successful season, reach the over, walk away with fans happy, have to be pretty high, right? You're 3-1. You started 1-0 in the Big 12. Now, obviously,
I mean, that's already one more. Isn't that one
yeah,
more?
they were 1-11, 0
conference, yeah.
0-9 last year, 0-8. But Oklahoma State obviously is very familiar with the hot start turning into nothing great. 2 years ago, I believe they started 3-0 and lost 9 straight. So they are familiar with, starting hot and that not determining how your season goes. But I think this would be different. I think if they start 3-1, they beat Tulsa, Murray State, and West Virginia. And, I bet they would even be willing to trade like that West Virginia win for an Oregon win, if you ask most fans. But I think if you start 3-1, you got to feel pretty good about the odds of you having a good season and walking away very happy after year 1.
What I'm thinking of is if they're 3-1, will they be ranked in my ballot? Probably.
Well, depends on how they look against Oregon, I think.
This is true. All right, let's keep it moving. We got 5 more teams. 5 more teams. Yep. TCU. I was a little disappointed in TCU last year. They were my pick to win this conference, and they did not do that. They went, a solid 9-4, kicked off by their boat race of Bill Belichick's North Carolina to start the season. Unfortunately, the Furry, if you know, has left the program and is now at Indiana. I'm also a little surprised that Kurt Signetti. That seems a little too much nonsense for a guy like Kurt, but I guess the talent's undeniable, so he's willing to, make some concessions. We'll get to Indiana in a future preview, so I'll go back to TCU. They lose Josh Hoover, big loss. What does Vegas think of their 2026 win total, though, JP? And then we can talk more about what they're doing to replace Josh Hoover and other pieces.
For Sonny Dykes and the Horned Frogs, their win total is 6.5, and they're favored to go over that. So they're expected to be bowl eligible and maybe do a little bit more.
Sure. And they're in that same little cluster of all the 5.5, 6.5 win total teams.
For quick clarification, did that whole furry thing...
Oh, he's not a furry.
So was that even a photo of him, or was it just like someone that looked like him and went viral?
Well, it's a guy in a fursuit, so there's no, looks like him.
Oh, okay. I thought it was... for some reason, I thought the photo was... the head was off and, there...
No.
Okay. Because we joke about it so much that I've kind of forgotten what the truth is and what is...
Well, it's just funny because, in the moment, you're like, surely this is fake, but, I don't know, I guess. He could just have a little... He could be a little furry on the side, but...
But he doesn't.
He's not.
So we can talk about what TCU does have and what Sonny Dykes does have.
Yeah, who's replacing him?
I think the expected replacement will be Jaden Craig, a transfer from Harvard.
Craig.
So that's going to be something interesting. JP, do you have any thoughts on this team, quarterback otherwise?
Well, Jaden Craig, he's not just any quarterback from Harvard. This is a 6'3" quarterback from Harvard who's got wheels. I can confirm that because the video game says he has 87 speed. But at Harvard, he threw for nearly 6,000 career passing yards and 52 touchdowns. So he's produced, albeit in the Ivy League, a little bit of step up into the Big 12, not academically, but definitely in a football sense. But he's built like a quarterback. He's going to look like a quarterback at 6'3". We'll just have to see if the step up in competition is something that he can live up to, because it's a pretty big step up.
I will say, do you think that in the Ivy League he's playing a bunch of defenses with like Luke Kuechly's and Troy Polamalu's, like a bunch of like high IQ
Yeah, they're
defenders?
supercomputers. They're just like always in the right
Yeah,
spot.
they all like they watch so much film. They always know where. Do you think it's like actually harder playing against defenses in the Ivy League?
I'd argue probably there's a little bit of difference between book smart and field smarts, but you never know.
You never know.
There's probably some correlation. You may be weak, but
There probably is.
the coefficient's probably not that close to 1, but I'm trying to impress my boy Craig.
Are there any other guys or pieces
Well,
that
I
you excited
just-
to watch?
I'm curious on this team. I mean, the biggest shortcoming last year in a lot of their bigger games and games they lost was the offensive line just completely falling apart. So I was interested to see, like, going and looking, like, oh, did they, like, attack offensive line in the portal? Doesn't really look like they did. They're only projected, from what I can see, to start 1 transfer. So we're looking at some, internal development, and that's going to be crucial. Now it helps, according to the video game, this guy's got 87 speed. It looks like he ran a little bit at Harvard. So, like, Hoover was handicapped by the fact he was never really that mobile of a guy, was kind of someone that wanted to stay in the pocket. So maybe even if the offensive line doesn't really get much better, Craig's just more suited to, work around the weakness. But either way, like, the offensive line needs to get better, or it's going to be another tough season for the quarterback in certain games and in the games where the other team has a really talented defensive line. So that's kind of what I'm looking at rolling through the season. I don't have an answer for if they fixed it, but I'd imagine that was kind of a point of focus this offseason.
Yeah, the only 4-star they brought in the portal in an otherwise pretty weak class in the bottom half of the Big 12 was an interior offensive lineman. So he was the highest rated transfer guy they brought in. So I think that while it may not have been, they may not have attacked it well, it looks like they may have attacked it more than any other position.
Sure. They also have someone on their team named Pimpton. So that's just something to file away.
Tuck that away. That'll be useful later.
We could get a Craig to Pimpton connection at some point.
I really need their social media admin to run with that. If he does score, that'd be huge. Do we want to pick over-unders?
I'm down to 6.5. I'm doing some quick win that.
Yep.
You beat North Carolina.
As most teams will this season.
You beat Grambling. You beat Arkansas State.
3.
I mean, Arkansas State lost their boy. He's also joining the Big 12, so they're scrambling at quarterback. We'll say you beat UCF. That's 4. You're 4-0. Loss, win,
5.
win. Ooh,
Loss,
the schedule gets a little
loss.
tough.
Yeah.
Those last 3. But I'll say
I would say last 4.
the last 4. I'll say they find 7. It's crucial they start off hot. You got to get off to a good start. But I'll say they find 7 and hit the over.
I'm gonna say they do not find 7, and I'll take the under. Looking at that schedule, especially down the stretch, I feel like it's one of those things where they have to get 7 in the first 9, 8, and that's just a lot more stressful. To win 7 out of 8 or 7 out of 9 is a lot harder than winning 7 out of 12 because the back end of the schedule is just so hard.
I'm taking the over. Sonny Dykes is just a coach that I believe in. I thought for him to find good success last year, and what kind of felt like more of a bridge year, I think they'll find some success this year with Jaden Craig. I'm excited to see Jaden Craig week 0 against North Carolina. Jaden Craig
Sure.
versus, is it still Gio Reyna? I already forgot from our ACC preview.
Gio Lopez.
Gio Lopez.
It is
Gio Reyna.
not still Gio Lopez. Hey, it's fine. It's fine. You're in a soccer
And
mood.
it's also not the guy from Eastern Carolina.
It is not him either.
Taylor Dickens. Sadly.
All right, Texas Tech.
Yeah, we'll get to another Texas school here. It's the big boy of the conference these days. Texas Tech, great year last year. They make the college football playoffs. We don't, for their sake, really have to talk what happened when they made it, and in their final game. But they went 12-2. Fantastic season. They're going to look to build on that. There has been some off-season hiccups, you could say. I doubt this is how they envision the offseason going with the Brendan Sorsby news. Old news at this point, but has, officially been ruled ineligible, so they're going to have to pivot elsewhere for the quarterback battle. However, I don't know how much it'll matter, at least for the regular season. Not only are they talented across the board and have some other decent quarterback options that we'll get to soon, but they have the weakest strength of schedule in the Big 12. So that works out very well for them. You don't play Utah. You don't play BYU. Your toughest game is, I guess, Arizona or Houston, and you get both those at home. So it's a light schedule. With all that in mind, though, JP, what do we have as their 2026 win total?
Their win total is now the heaviest favorite I've seen on one side. They're basically like 70% favorite to go over 10.5 wins.
That is crazy. Vegas is very confident in them winning, basically winning 11 games.
I mean, you tell me what game they lose.
Yeah, I don't know. I look at it, and it's...
I mean, it's college football. Like, okay, you say they lose one, but then still, they're at 11. Like, it makes perfect sense.
I think the most likely scenario that plays out for Texas Tech to lose a game is Oklahoma State clicks, and because they don't play until mid-November, they've got a whole season to warm up for this game. And Oklahoma State starts off as like a team of a bunch of transfers, and it doesn't work. And then come mid-November, they're like 4-4, 4-3, and then they win that game because it's in Stillwater. I think that's the most likely scenario to play out.
I'm looking at Houston comes to town week 3. Will Hammond maybe isn't fully recovered from his ACL injury. So maybe he's playing, but like he's a little rusty, or they pivoted to another option, and he's just not playing that well. And Houston pulls off a shocker week 3.
I don't even know the likelihood of that because Joey McGuire said he should be ready to come week 1. So by week 3, he'll already...
Coaches say a lot of things.
They do say a lot of things, but they're supposed to tell the truth, so I'm going to trust them.
It wasn't just Coach Joey McGuire that said that too. I saw earlier today on SportsCenter,
Setbacks happen.
Eakin, supposed to be one of their best receivers, said that Will Hammond told him that he had ran 20.9 miles per hour already. So
that's straight line speed. So
I'm gonna guess he's ready for week 1. Will Hammond is.
How much of camp? Okay, how much of camp does he miss? He's still learning the.
These are the real questions.
He's still trying to figure out how much air he's got to put under his deep ball to Shim Sham McGee as he's hitting the go route. Like I don't know. I'm trying to find something here that they could lose. At this point, the name of the game for them is don't screw up the regular season bad enough to where you somehow can't make the playoffs. And then, because I mean, that's the prize, is like they're just looking to get back to the playoffs and make amends for what happened last season when they got there.
Do we think that will happen, or do we think quarterback play will kind of handcuff them again when they get there?
I mean, it's hard because I was not a Baron Morton guy. Like, we were kind of all over, as many people were, the fact that, like, when they get to the playoffs, like, Morton probably is going to be one of the worst quarterbacks in the playoffs, and it's really going to hurt him. So I do think Will Hammond could be better and probably will be better, but, like, how much better is good enough. And also, we have a couple games worth of knowledge on Will Hammond. It's not like we're working from just a treasure trove of tape and, stuff to go off of. So
yeah, and obviously
he's gonna have a lot of time to learn, though, and kind of a long runway in terms of just like he could play a lot of mediocre games and it probably won't matter because their defense will probably just be like, you score 10 points and you score 13 and we scored 17 by ourselves basically as a defense. So.
Yeah, with interceptions and field position.
Yeah,
there's a lot of turnover and that's not necessarily something you want to see because you look at a team like Florida State where they had a great year in 2023 and then turnover, and now all of a sudden
because karma got to him.
Because the guy didn't eat the food.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that was divine intervention in a
But what if
ways.
karma gets Texas Tech for like throwing around all this money, all this oil money? Karma.
Or the video that they released defending Brendan Sorsby.
True. I mean,
true.
Texas Tech might have some karma coming their way. But in all reality, like, there's been a lot of turnover on this roster. They had 6 guys from the defensive side of the ball get drafted last year. And so you're going to replace all those guys, and you just think that it's going to click exactly like it did last year, and you're just going to be able to point at a team with a wand and say 10 points, 10 points, 3 points. Like, there's no guarantee that that's how it plays out. Now, we can expect that to be how it plays out, and obviously the guys are talented. They had the number 1 portal class in the Big 12, the number 1 high school class in the Big 12. They brought in a top 5 player. Was Ojo a top 5 player? Felix, I think his name was Felix Ojo.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's like they've started to supplement from the high school ranks as well, and then fusing talent in multiple ways. So even if a couple of the transfers don't hit, they're becoming a deeper team. The thing is, the fact of the matter is, you are right. Like even if it may not hit, but it would have to go pretty disastrously for them to still not be the best team in the Big 12.
I mean, the ACC has not been great the last couple. Excuse me, it was good last year with Miami, but we were not. I mean, 2 years ago, Clemson was 9-3 and won it, and that was the exact same conversation we would have been having about Florida State.
But
my
Florida
point
State
is just
wasn't doing this in the high school recruiting ranks, and they weren't even necessarily like that. Putting in these crazy like transfer classes either. Like in a lot of ways, they kind of like hit on a couple under the radar guys the year they got it done.
Yeah.
It could happen. Like you're always a risky game playing the transfer portal, but it's not quite the same. There's reasons for me why I feel a lot more assured that running it back will work.
Yeah.
Because also we have a little more evidence, and I feel like people are better scouting the transfer portal now than they were. Because like Florida State was kind of the trailblazer in that
guinea pig
asset in a lot of ways. Yeah, and it did not. They got injected with some bad drug that made them lose all their hair or something. I don't know.
In full disclosure, I do think it will work. I'm just trying to like paint the picture of a way it might not work.
Correct. We've been trying to find this whole time to figure out a way how they don't even get to 11 wins. So like there's some devil advocate.
But the reality is their schedule is weak. Their defense will probably be good, and their offense will be good enough to win 11 games and potentially 12 games.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about A&M legend Micah Hudson?
I mean, the 2 weeks he spent practicing on A&M's campus were pretty big. I do find it pretty funny that he went back and didn't really do much.
Yeah.
So, maybe this is his year, but at this point I wouldn't really bank on that.
He's a junior. I couldn't remember how old he was.
I mean, talented kid, but has struggled to find playing time at this point in his career.
Yeah.
So, any other players you want to highlight, or are we ready to pick this?
Oh, I do actually. Yeah, Quentin Joyner is one. Former 4-star transfer running back from last year's class, but then missed all of this last year with a knee injury. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I know I was kind of trying to paint a picture of how it could go wrong, but there's a lot of talented guys there. 3 4-star transfers, Adam Trick, Mateen Ibarogba, and Austin Romaine, all 3 on the defensive side of the ball. Trick had a 91 PFF grade last year with 8 sacks. Ibarogba had 3 sacks as an interior defensive lineman with 15 tackles. And then Austin Romaine didn't play a complete season last year, but had 49 tackles, an interception, and 2 pass breakups as a linebacker. So these are 3 guys who they will likely do just like they did last year and pull a David Bailey from Stanford and pull guys from all over and plug them together, and it's going to work.
Yeah, Romaine was one of the guys I wanted to highlight. This is a guy who was all Big 12 2 years in a row, and now here he is at Texas Tech. He'll be all Big 12 again, I fully imagine. That edge rusher from Miami of Ohio, Trick, really solid. They got 3 great running backs. I was going to mention Joyner as well, but they kept the 2 running backs from last year, who were a dynamic duo in Jacoby Williams, who was your speed threat, and then Cameron Dickey, who just kind of grinded you down the whole game. Their tight end, who I think might be the best tight end in college football, if you ask me, Terrence Carter Jr., is back again. This team is loaded offensively. I think they're going to be better offensively, and I think that's going to make them look even more dangerous this year, because I do think they'll keep, with the weak schedule, the defense will analytically, statistically, whatever you want to say, will still kind of look to the same level. It may not feel as powerful because it doesn't have a top 5 pick in David Bailey, but they got a shutdown corner, Mississippi State legend Bryce Pollock.
They do.
And they still have edge rushers and great linebackers as well.
That recruiting.
I do think for this team this year, Jack mentioned the focal point is to make sure you aren't in a position where you miss the Big 12 championship game or miss the playoff. I think you got to play good enough this regular season to make the Big 12 championship game not be a win and end game, a game where you can stumble.
Sure. Good point.
Where whoever it may be in that game can beat you that day and you still make the playoff. On top of that, I also think it's a pretty big priority to make sure you play good enough to where if you do win the Big 12 championship game, you're either hosting a first round game, which would be electric in Lubbock, or you're again having that first round bye. I think those are the top priorities. Is every single week is a chance to show the committee how good we are. I think they're going to give Texas Tech, especially the AP poll, and then even the playoff committee is going to give them a ton of respect because they're a known commodity this year because of the season that they had last year. But I think you've got to show you've got to have something to play for every single week, and I think that is what you have to play for if you're a Red Raider. Is we want to secure a home playoff game. That's the goal, and if better, it's a first round bye. We want to secure a home playoff game here in Lubbock at the end of the year.
Quick shout out to that the Bryce Pollock recruiting class, because they had Isaac Smith, who's been one of our best players over the last 4 years. It had Kelly Jones, who'll be drafted in the first round.
LSU legend Creed Whitmore.
No, Utah. Is he at LSU now?
No, who's the guy that muffed the punt against LSU?
Austin Williams.
I knew he was a white receiver.
Yeah, he's older than that. Bryce Pollock was in that in that recruiting class, and then Zachary Tillman, who has been really good, was good last year, and will be an important part of the defense. Just a good recruiting class. But about Texas Tech, I just had to shout that out because I thought about it with Pollock. What do you think? 10 wins. They're not, and Texas, like you were talking about a win and in situation. What is like a win and in situation for Texas Tech? Is it 10 wins and then you have to win and you're in, or do you think 11 wins with this schedule is enough? Because
I would not want to just tempt fate with
Right.
going in at 11-1 with how weak the schedule is.
you think about BYU last year, I think they were in the same situation. They were 11-1 and they were in a win and in situation.
No, I do think JP makes a good point of established credibility that they'd be way more likely to make it in at 11-1. They'd make up some reason about margin of victory was so good or something like that. And also we get to a point where they're sitting at 11-1, but the way the field has shook out, they're going to be probably in regardless.
The last thing I'll say is the committee is a committee of people, and so I wonder, do we get, if it comes down to the wire, is there a chance that Texas Tech ruffled some feathers with the whole Brendan Storesby thing and how hard they fought to have someone who broke such hard and fast rules? Like, you talk, JP, what is it you say all the time? Is it talking about the committee where you say you got to remember it's people?
Yeah, I mentioned that. A few times last year, where it's people that are making this choice. It's not the computers like the BCS era. It's 12, 13 people. One opinion can sway a vote whether a team gets in or not.
Good point.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
And so that's another thing. If they are 11-1 and then they lose the Big 12 championship and now they're 11-2, or they're 10-2 and they've looked dominant and then just had a couple close losses to the best teams in their schedule, who I don't know who they are off the top of my head. Is that what it comes down to? Is it the committee and they say, you know what, this team broke some unwritten as well as written rules? They didn't technically break any rules, but they fought so hard to get a guy who did break some written rules. Do they decide to punish them for that? That'd be something I'd be interested to see.
Cool. Well, let's pick over under. I'm taking the over 10.5.
I'm also taking the over. I'm not. No
Zero
more explanation
qualms
needed.
about it.
I'm taking the over as well. I think they go undefeated in the regular season. But it'll depend on who they play in the Big 12 championship game, whether they win that game or not.
BYU will get revenge.
Oh yeah.
All right, 3 more teams. Let's try and rattle through these last couple. UCF. What did UCF do in 2025? You asked, just as a bit of a checkup. They went 5-7. Not necessarily the best year, not the worst. They'll look to somewhat build off of that. Name I want to mention, I already mentioned him earlier on the podcast, but Alonzo Barnett is coming in from JMU to potentially play quarterback for them. What does Vegas have as their 2026 win total?
Now they're one of those bowl eligibility teams. They're favored to go over 5.5.
Sure. Yeah. I also want to shout out real quick, I did not know this, but their stadium is called the Acrisure Bounce House. So
That's sick.
it's a pretty sick. name, and I'm sure it's just referred to as the bounce house. I doubt, they're like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
you going to the Acrisure bounce house tonight? No, we're in the bounce house.
Guys, I just realized we haven't even been calling it the Monster Big 12, the Monster Energy Big 12.
Yeah.
Are we gonna get sued?
Well, no, because we're not being sponsored.
Oh, okay. But the Big 12 is.
I mean, if Monster wants to sponsor us, I'll call it the Monster Energy.
I'm just saying, if we're gonna call it the Acrisure Bounce House, we should call it the Monster Energy Big 12. UCF.
You make a good point.
They go into year 2/year
7.
4 of Scott
Okay,
Frost.
yeah, I forgot he really wasn't there that long. The first time.
He was there for 2 whole years. In
Yeah.
year 1, he went 6-7. In year 2, he went 13-0, and then went straight on to Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
Where was he before he came back to UCF? Because Rule's been at Nebraska longer than that. I couldn't even remember.
Hey, maybe he just took a break.
Okay, I couldn't. I was trying to remember earlier today, and I couldn't off the top of my head. But yeah, he goes into his second year 2 at UCF, and I don't think the expectations are 13-0, but I do think that they are better than 5-7 like they went last year. They do bring in Alonzo Burnett, which I think it has to be exciting. I know I'm excited. He was a big part of that team last year that made the playoffs. 2,800 yards, 38 total touchdowns, and kind of ends up at UCF. I would say they kind of luck out because Chesney takes the UCLA job, and you've got Nico Iamaleava, who's like the prototypical like star quarterback build, talent, and everything. It hasn't worked out yet, but I imagine that Chesney had a conversation and was like, "This is like don't." I imagine that when you're a coach with a quarterback, there's some honesty there of like, "Hey, like I think we're gonna run it with Nico Iamaleava. Don't waste a year and come ride the bench. Like this is not a competition." I like to imagine that the coach had the best interest of his players at heart. So he goes to UCLA where he's got Iamaleava, and so yeah, Barnett winds up at UCF, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting. He will also have an interesting weapon. I believe his only weapon who had over 550 receiving yards last year. So receiving room from this year did not look good last year. It's a lot of pieces that were not productive last year at UCF or elsewhere, except for one guy. Josh Derry had 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns last year at Monmouth, and a lot of those came in very few games. So versus Fordham, he had 144 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Nice.
And then my favorite stat line I've ever seen: 2 receptions, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns. Versus North Carolina A&T. So he rattled off some odd stat lines.
Pretty good day at the office.
Yeah, some odd stat lines in his time at Monmouth, and he will be the most productive incoming receiver for UCF and for Barnett. But what are y'all's thoughts on this UCF team?
I'm excited to watch Barnett play, but I don't necessarily have tons of excitement to watch the rest of the team play. And I don't necessarily have high expectations for this group. Now, I do think a bowl game is well within the realm of possibility. They don't necessarily have the hardest schedule. It's kind of middle of the pack in terms of what you're looking at in the Big 12. But yeah, I just they're not making moves in the portal really. They're not recruiting at a crazy high level. The Barnett get is huge, and you mentioned the lack of weapons. We'll probably see Barnett run the ball a good bit if I had to guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really have tons of thoughts, and I don't necessarily have tons of excitement about this squad, which is sad because I would love to see the bounce house jumping.
JP?
Yeah, the Barnett get was just surprising for me. I kind of thought he would have landed somewhere bigger. And I wonder how the transfer portal negotiations and did he have a good agent or not or whatever, how that kind of went. Because as soon as he left the portal from JMU, I thought this is a guy who may be playing for one of the big 2, the Big 10 or the SEC. So UCF really surprised me once I saw that.
I feel like they must have given him a pretty good paycheck. But also, am I wrong that holy moly, it kind of UCLA slow played their hiring a little bit. So I feel like it took a while for Barnett to hit the portal too. So he was a little behind the 8 ball potentially in terms of other people already had found their guys.
That's fair.
And that could have hurt him as well. Do we want to pick over under here? Okay.
I was going to say, speaking of UCLA, it just kind of sucks too that Nico was Nico's still there, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, that it just kind of sucks that Nico was sitting there, and it's just not an easy saying like with Oklahoma State, how Messamaker just you can just go be the starting quarterback there. It does kind of suck that he couldn't follow Alonza, couldn't follow Kenny or not Kenny, Bob Chesney to UCLA and start at quarterback. Uh, and now he ends up here at UCF. So I hope he has a good year because this is a guy who maybe he's a under the radar late round draft pick quarterback next year.
Is that our first talk we've had of draft this show? I think it might be.
Well, I mean, we talked about like Sorsby first round, like kind of his buzz.
Yeah.
But
True.
5.5. You said was the over under.
Yep.
I'm gonna take the under. I think it'll be another 5-7 season, kind of just more of the same.
I think I'm going to take the over. I'm going to buy into Barnett. I'm going to buy into year 2 of Scott Frost. I'm not predicting 13-0, but they don't even have to win half that many games, and they hit the over. So I'll take the over. JP?
I'll take the over as well in honor of Alonza Barnett.
2 more to go.
Yeah, that gets on to another one of the kind of powerhouses of the Big 12 / a team that has good odds to challenge, out of anybody, challenge Texas Tech for the Big 12 title, and that is Utah, who last year finished at a great 11-2. It was a good season. Unfortunately, I would say, it's kind of one of the things you never expect him to leave at this point, but Kyle Whittingham leaves and takes the Michigan job, and Morgan Scully steps in to fill that spot. So there will be a different man at the helm. However, I feel like it's going to be more of the same Utah. Like I don't think Scully necessarily has, unless you all have seen anything different, that to like any big plans to change the identity of this team or overhaul the offense or defense.
I mean, he's been in the program since 2007. He played there prior to then. So I think that if there is any coaching transition that I would feel confident about it looking almost identical from one guy to the next, it's this. The only other example I would think of it was like a dad passing it to his son.
Sure.
So I feel pretty good about that. And like he keeps a lot of guys in-house. Obviously, he keeps Dampier in-house. He's not going anywhere. So I think it's going to look a lot like it has in the past.
Yeah. Before I get any further, I want to get the win total from JP, and then following JP, if you'd give your thoughts on year 2 of Devon Dampier in this program, because if I remember correctly, you were pretty high on him transferring in last year, and he kind of had a bit of an up and down season. So if you'll give me those 2 things, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, anything for you, Jack.
Appreciate.
Utah over 8.5 their win total is 8.5. Over is favored.
Gotcha.
It's a team that's expected to be right there on a double-digit win season. And on Dampier, at year 2 for him with the Utah Utes, I was so high on him because, I mean, just like with Taron Dickens, his stats were just so good the year prior. Dampier had 16 passing touchdowns, 16 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
The year prior, transferring into Utah. And I do think last year I expected a bigger jump with his just the way his passing looked. Statistically, he finished fine. He actually finished better than he had finished the year prior. He threw for 24 touchdowns last year and only threw 5 picks. But there were games, especially like the Texas Tech game, the noon kickoff against Texas Tech, huge one, where his ability to throw the football just was not there.
Yeah.
He in his best games last year, he dominated with his legs. I don't expect that to be any different this year, but I do hope he can kind of improve there. He's got plenty of weapons to throw to, if you ask me. Creed Whitmore will be there year 2.
Yep.
Another transfer, another Mississippi boy. Larry Simmons is coming from Southern Miss, and then they got 2 receivers. One who transfers in from San Jose State and another that returns, who are arguably better than those 2. You add that with Wayshawn Parker, who transfers in from Washington State. I think this is an offense that I would expect to play better than a lot of the Utah offenses we've seen, and really like this century and probably this past decade. which could be pretty exciting. There's always been a team that's really been built um, on their defensive prowess, but I think maybe their offensive side of the ball might carry them a little bit this year.
I
Sure.
wonder. So I feel like another reason you were higher on Dampier, or at least one of the reasons that I really kind of agreed with you and was like, I feel like that's a good take, that's a good prediction, was the offensive line. And now you lose two first round offensive tackles on both sides, left and right. Does that make you a little bit more nervous about Dampier going into year two? Because, you would expect there to be a step forward, some progression. He loses his OC, so a new offensive coordinator, some changes there, and then obviously loses those two offensive linemen. I feel like that would be a red flag for me, a concern. But would you agree with that, or would you push back a little?
I think you would agree with that because you're so big on offensive line. I don't think I
True.
necessarily um, feel that way. I think the offensive line will kind of figure itself out there. It won't. Obviously, it's not going to be as talented and productive as Lomo and Fano, but I do think they will still be able to find success running the football, and then with that being able to set up maybe the play action game with Dampier. I just don't. I don't think it'll play that much of a factor. This is
Yeah.
outside of really what Texas Tech is really the only school that we've mentioned with like premier pass rushers and expected premier pass rushers, and they won't play them until if they get there the Big 12 championship game. So I just don't expect it to be outside of maybe BYU a season where the offensive line kind of just crumbles throughout the year. That
Yeah,
is something like with Mississippi State last year, huge problem. And it's a huge problem because feels like every SEC school just has a premier pass rusher. Texas A&M has two. They got Cassius Howe. Missouri had Zion Young. That just every team you play has good pass rushers coming at you. It's not necessarily the case in the Big 12.
yeah. A couple of more things I wanted to mention. So the new OC, Kevin McGivern, comes from, I believe he was the OC at Utah State previously, and last year his quarterback Bryson Barnes ran for 1,000 yards and had 10 touchdowns on the ground. So like, while it is a new OC, I do think that there's going to be some consistently is at least the way the OC is going to approach the game and the way he's going to want to utilize his quarterback and utilize his legs, which does set up well for Dampier.
Sure.
And then the last thing, another guy who came from Utah State was Braden Pegan, a wide receiver. Had 900 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. So probably the most productive weapon they have on their roster from last year. So two guys to watch out for there. And then also their highest rated prospect ever, according to 24/7. Their only 5-star high schooler ever, Kelvin Obot, offensive tackle, which maybe he saw those two guys get drafted in the first round, and that was all he wanted. That was
Yeah.
all he
He's
needed
like you.
to like me.
Yeah. He's a big fan of offensive
Oh,
line.
well, I feel like any player would be a fan of a school where they put guys in
Yeah.
his position in the first round.
You would think.
So maybe he saw that and was like, "That's for me." So he wants to get drafted in the first round in 3 years.
Well, over under is 8.5. I will take the over. Pretty high floor program, and we talked about potential transition issues, but more so we talked about the fact that there probably be a lack of a feeling of transition. So I'll take the over.
I think I'm also going to take the over. I'm just trying to pull up like their previous years. I know Whittingham had a 10+ win season in 3 of the last 5 years.
I talk about high floor, and they went 5-7 in
2 years ago.
2024. For the most part, barring blips.
Yeah, it was 11, 5 wins, 8 wins, 10 wins, 10 wins, 3 wins, 11 wins, 9 wins.
Hey, that was 2020.
2020. You're right. 2020. They were 3-2. They
Yeah.
were 3-2, but they were also in the Pac-12, and Pac-12 had USC, Oregon.
Yeah, I mean that was a demon of a conference.
It was a demon of a conference.
You're fighting wars on the West Coast at
Past your bedtime.
yeah, exactly.
It was. I mean, I can't imagine having to be a player and playing at 3 a.m. and it's like it's my bedtime, bro.
Yeah, except they're on the West Coast, so now you get how that works. But yeah. Oh no, yeah, for sure.
JP over under.
Jinx.
I'm going to take the over. Their biggest games this year are all at home. Arkansas in week 2 is at home. Houston is at home. The Holy War is at home. That's 3 huge games right there, all at home. I think they'll win 2 out of 3. Of course, lose the Holy War. in dramatic fashion. But I think Utah gets to 9 wins pretty comfortably. I expect them to not take a huge step back in the loss of Kyle Whittingham.
Sure.
Sounds
Well,
good.
let's get on to the last team, and that is good old West Virginia.
The Mountaineers.
Yeah, what did West Virginia do last year, you may ask? Well, they went 4-8, not the best season. They're going to look to do better than that in 2026. You would at least hope they're looking to do better than that. If not, why are they here? Why are they playing this sport? I couldn't tell you. I need two things from you, JP. Again, I need two things. First, obviously, the 2026 win total. And second, as has been the bit of this episode, I'm going to need transfer pure runner Michael Hawkins Madden or EA 27 speed.
Okay, their win total is 5.5. They're favored to go over 5.5. So what is that, like 12 or 13 bowl eligible teams in this conference?
Yeah.
Per
Something like
Vegas
that.
win total, which is just fascinating. Michael Hawkins, the transfer from Oklahoma, who is not a good thrower of the football, but can run, has the highest speed we've seen so far out of a quarterback, 90 overall speed.
Wow.
Yeah, look forward to that, West Virginia.
That's what you have to be excited about.
I do also another transfer I want to shout out is Cam Cook, the running back, coming from Jacksonville State. Put up a whopping 1,600 yards last season
Absolute
and
dog.
16 touchdowns, 295 rushing attempts. Was putting in the work. We're going to look to see if he can do that at a higher level of competition. That was a big get in the portal. They needed kind of a steadying force in the backfield. Hopefully he can provide that. Other thoughts on this team?
Yeah, so they're going into the second year 2 of Rich Rodriguez there. And I just thought it was interesting. So if you look back at his previous tenure, they went 4-8 last year. Is that what you said? And
Yes.
So year 1 last time they went 3-8, and then rattled off 9-4, 8-5, 8-4, and then put it in sixth gear 11-1, 11-2, and 10-2. And much like Scott Frost, I'm not predicting like the exact same outcome where
But you could if you were looking to find some Kool-Aid to drink.
But if you were trying to be optimistic, if
Yes.
you were a fan who you just can't do losing anymore, that's what you're selling yourself on. Is you're selling yourself on Rich Rodriguez has been here before. He's done that before. If you're tired of the 5-7s and the 6-6s that you feel like you've had as a West Virginia fan over the last 10 years, that's the Kool-Aid you're drinking, is that he does it again. The Kool-Aid you're drinking is that Michael Hawkins runs for, 1,800 yards, 1,500 yards, and 20 touchdowns with that 90 overall speed in Madden. It's something you can sell yourself on. I don't think I'll be selling myself on it. Their schedule is not. They play at Texas Tech and at Utah and at TCU, so 3 ranked opponents, all 3 of them on the road. That's not ideal. And they've got a tough out-of-conference game.
Yeah, very tough and fun as well. I mean, just Battle of the Virginias, which, a bit of a regional matchup. And, of course, the Battle of Virginias is being played in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it just makes perfect sense. But, yeah, I'm excited for that one.
JP, what else do you have on this team?
Can't believe that game is being played in Charlotte. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's awful. Surely, that game could have been played in like Baltimore. Like that wouldn't be a Virginia, but that'd be way closer.
It'd be better than Charlotte.
Yeah.
I want this West Virginia team to be good. I've always just kind of liked West Virginia ever since growing up. It was the team my uncle
Same.
would always pick when we played against each other in college football. And so I've played against West Virginia plenty of times in the Mountaineers. But also, like, it's just good I think it would be good for the sport for them to be back to kind of what they looked like in the Big East days. Of course, a lot of people say that about a lot of teams. This is the team that I'll say it about. I think they would just be good for college football, for West Virginia to be good again, and hopefully they can return to those days under Rich Rod. I don't think it'll be this year. As you mentioned, I was going to mention it too. Their 3 road games are just brutal in conference. And then the fourth one is at Iowa State. Um, so maybe you can steal that road win. And then they still play some tough teams at home, like Arizona and Houston this year. So I just don't see this team. I don't see what Vegas sees. Maybe Vegas sees what you hinted at the beginning of this segment, Sanders, with Rich Rod and his rising of the program. But I'll go ahead and pick the under on them. I don't think they get to bowl eligibility. I think they win 5 games at most. And this is just maybe another step in the right direction. I think it's really just a step to the side, and we just continue on this little linear path.
Yeah, and I'll also maybe we do get what you want, JP, and an improved West Virginia and a West Virginia that is back to play off the phrase Texas is back next year and the year after that. Because if you look at their recruiting, they are like recruiting really, really well. They had a top 5 portal class in the Big 12, and then they had the number 2 high school class in the Big 12. They brought in 4 4-stars. Like, these are the kind of guys that if Rich Rodriguez can build this thing kind of from the ground up again.
Yeah, stick around long
Yeah,
enough.
this is when we're talking about, okay, year 3, maybe even year 2 they do get to a bowl game, and then year 3 we're talking about 8, 9 wins. Like, that's, I think, the kind of build we're talking about with this team. And I do think he will stick around long enough because, he's had the success there. I feel like that probably has bought him, like, as weird as it is, I feel like winning at a program, even if it was 15, 20 years ago, like, that plays tricks on the mind. Like, to where if State had brought back Dan Mullen, we would have been like, oh my gosh, Dan is back. We'll give him the time he needs. I think Rich Rodriguez might have that same opportunity in West Virginia to go, 5-7 or 4-8 this year, and then have another year after that, and another year after that, maybe.
Yeah, I don't disagree because also not only is it like he's back, but it's like, man, we were just so horrible. Like, previously, whoever they got would have got a pretty fair shake. I will also take the under, though.
I will take, I don't know, I wish I could do the math and figure out which I have more of, overs or unders, out of the 16 teams we picked, but for the sake of consistency, I'll also go the under. I'm already planning out the the pick 'em, the score,
Sure.
the standings. So I got to lay the groundwork to be sure I don't lose too many games on y'all. Can't let y'all get ahead. Is that it?
That's it. And I think we bounce on out of here. It's a nice 3-hour episode. Some good content. It was great. It was a ton of fun. Thanks to everyone who tuned in and listened, either in the live stream or via podcast, YouTube, whatever. After, if you're still here, you reach this point, because obviously everyone has. Like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want. But yeah, your support means a lot, and we'll be back for y'all next week to preview the Big Ten.
Yep.
Sweet.
Sounds good.
See y'all then.
Bye.
Peace.
See ya.